of stealth, and you've got the knock-up off of ultimate, but for the most part, that ultimate, very avoidable. And so you have to make up that CC somewhere else. Between CERN and Horus, I think you've got enough for your team fight. Wild Hunt, AoE CC should put threat on relics, and Horus in that single target can make use of those burnt relics.
Well, now with the Horus selected, Jade Dragons jump into the banning phase for themselves. A Nox ban up against Jake, which was one of his premier picks all of last season, and definitely at the start of this season was one of his best selections and one of his more winning gods. Opposite end, a little ban over towards the jungle side. Nemesis taken away by the Oni Warriors and the Yamoja now for the Jade Dragons, with their support locked in, making sure to try and keep the 408 off of some of those more top-tier style of picks by taking both the Nox and the Yamoja away from him. We see the Oni Warriors taking a shot at Lasmer. I'm trying to think what other gods maybe take away from Lasmer at this point. Maybe the Hunbats is something that he's gone to a couple of times. You got the Serket and the Nemesis, kind of his top selections. Instead, it's the Aokwang. Not many junglers in the league are playing the Aokwang. Immediately to mind, I think of players like Oath and Adapting kind of as those top ones. Didn't really fit Lasbra so much for an Aokwang player, though.
Yeah, but this event has taught me that Aokwang is solidly within the meta. Johnny as well has had some phenomenal performances on it. And so, taking away a late game hyper carry, taking away an execute, I think valuable. And the Oni Warriors will put their eyes there. That does, as you said, leave Bakasura available. Jade Dragons could decide to take it for themselves here. Instead, eyes on comfort and safety. Jingwei locked in for the Jade Dragons. Good luck locking her down in lane. If you want to kill Jingwei, those opportunities generally come much later. Just so safe thanks to that airstrike, the ability to deal with any form of knockup. So if Baba Yaga is barrel stuffing with her ultimate on transformation, Jingwei should be able to displace herself with relative ease. And it's not as if she's got any poor matchups either. But it is a departure from the standard Hunter meta. CERN likely for mid now. You're lacking a little bit of pressure there. I mean, it's really good on objectives. You're going to have phenomenal objective burn. One of these Hunters could go down the crit build, which would force out some Spectral Armors on the Oni Warriors. But it is a non-standard double Hunter composition. When I think of two Hunters, it's not exactly these two.
Sobek and Daji, the final two picks for the Oni Warriors. A comfort pick for Panatom, and something that we don't really usually see for Jake over in the support role on the Sobek. We have seen some Sobek, maybe kind of tying back to what you were mentioning, the potential likelihood that we could see an Achilles go over to support, though, as you mentioned, it has been some time since we've seen that. But now when I think of Lasbra, Ratatoskr is definitely one of those gods that comes to mind. So Daji, Ratatoskr, kind of talk to me about maybe the curve for these two junglers as the game goes through. Is this a early game style of play for the Jade Dragons with this Ratatoskr? Is this one that you want to scale a little bit later on for the Oni Warriors? How these two junglers kind of want to play these picks?
Rat's going to have more impact in the early game for sure. The ability to just get involved anywhere on map thanks to your global presence, the ability to stun out some of these channeled abilities as well, the 1,000 cuts from Daji, means that Rat should have more impact. Once we're about 3 items in a build on both junglers, Daji's just going to have much more burst potential, also much more threatening CC. The Palau just so good in the team fight. So for the early, I'd say keep your eyes on Lazara. He'll be the pace setter. He'll be the one dictating the ganks for the most part. I imagine we see Panatom playing spoiler to those ganks, just show up, try and slow things down for him. And then once we get to that late game team fight, there's going to be a clear shift in value between these assassins. Just really heavily favoring the Daji in a post-25 minutes world. And I think that might just be true of this composition as a whole. I just much prefer how the Oni Warriors comp is going to play in the 5-on-5. The Jade Dragons have got good pick potential for sure, but it seems like it's pretty difficult to really leverage a couple of picks in the early game into a substantiated lead. Gold Fury seems difficult to knock down in the current patch. Pyromancer, yeah, sure, but it's really that Runic Bomb, and if that's the case with a composition like this from the Jade Dragons, which I would argue is very defensive, it'd be hard to use that Runic Bomb as well. I'm curious to see how it plays out. This is a very different look at the Jade Dragons.
Now, given that this is a double Hunter composition, does it really matter, at least in your mind, where one of these two Hunters goes? And the reason I ask that is because we actually do have some insight. This is Jingwei going to Dardas in mid. So does that maybe kind of change your identity of this team, or is this still at its core just a double Hunter comp, no matter if the CERN or the Jingwei is going mid?
Yeah, for the most part, when you try and figure out which Hunter goes mid, you generally put the pressure Hunter in mid, whichever one can shove waves in more consistently and be involved in those mid-camp fights or red buff invades or things along those lines. Jingwei brings a good deal less pressure than CERN, I think. It's much safer. So if you're concerned about Daji rotations or maybe Achilles rotating into some of these team fights, put your Jing in mid. She's going to be very safe there. But the flip side of that coin is now it's much easier to gank in the duo lane, and kills in duo tend to lead to gold threes, whereas kills in mid, you at least still have duo lane to defend. Jing mid, I'm not sure how much of a defense she's going to put up.
Well, the Oni Warriors are still on a hot streak for themselves. They were 14-0, or 13-0 coming into the event. They found a win last week, notched up to 14. Can they keep that going to 15, or can the J Dragons be the team to stop them in their tracks? Let's start it all off in game number 1 with Gore and Trelly.
Thanks so much, J-Mac. That's right, it's Gore, it's Trelly, and of course showing us everything visually. It's going to be Doug, and it is very much Trelly on that note.
Реально, Паш, для тебя сделал громче.
Undefeated from formation to now, and the Dragons in a position to try and end that, and should things go wrong for them, somebody else is going to have the opportunity to do so. Seems like chat is leaning towards the Warriors. Mifflin was leaning towards the Warriors. We don't get anything too crazy, like an Achilles in the support role. It is just going to be the Sobek over there. But I do want to ask you, because I feel like we've seen it...
Что, опять? Нормально, вылетело сразу у кого-то. А, лошары.
A little over a week now to cook on the patch. A lot more time to invest for these
Приятно.
What's your experience with the Jormungandr
Спасибо.
the current season?
Спасибо.
Yeah, it seems like the Yorm's been getting banned away a bit, right? I know that Ducky was very upset that it got banned away from a lot of his sets recently, so something that's been cooking in the background. You know, a lot of these solo
They let
laners
it
have been
marinate
enjoying
for a
it.
little
Yeah,
while.
we haven't gotten to see it, unfortunately, on broadcast, but
Ой.
I'm guessing in scrims and in ranked games, the Yorm has been annoying to deal with. He's probably one of the
Пожалуйста.
safer solo laners you can go for, where, yeah, you can still...
Кучерявый, да, там все киберспортсмены на месте.
Hybrid, and you're able to put yourself out of position, get out with the World Serpent, and just so annoying to lane up against, right? His clear is ridiculous.
He almost always comes up in that discussion, like when we're talking solo laners that are really good at not losing. Yorm has always been in that conversation.
Yep.
It's just every now and then there hits a meta where he's also good at winning the lane alongside it. But like you said, like safety, very akin to what you would maybe expect from like a Sun Wukong.
Yep.
Нормально, блин, 1,5 часа не могли запустить серваки, теперь еще будут делиться в этот... Сидеть, понимать, что там у кого вылетело из-за чего. Ну хотя бы запустили, блин. Вероники? Думаешь, они с Вероникой были? А, я думал, ты... Блин, как ты задолбал со своими вот этими штуками. Где она нахер? Цель доната, во. Все, убрал.
Later on, of course, Jingwei might be able to come online. You can diversify crit and shred, which I think could be beneficial in a meta like this, but it is a bit odd. If you're asking anything that's jumping out at me, that's definitely top on the list.
And in my mind, you know, I see Jingwei, I think, okay, you know what, if you're going mid, maybe it's something to do with the passive, right? You could rotate. But just like you said, it's going to take a while to get online, so it's not like you're getting crazy early rotations because your passive is nuts. It's just like, you can make it back to lane after you get bopped. Who knows? Maybe there's some sort of synergy. I mean, they've got a Ratatoskr right to help offset maybe some of the pressure Jingwei is going to be receiving to try and push back against the Warriors. But Trelly, it feels like the Warriors are a team that you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. I mean, they love to run it down.
Я не могу показать тебе главного киберспортсмена. Я могу показывать только то, что мне показывают.
This entire season has been as fast as they can possibly make it. Sometimes it goofs up for them. Sometimes they stumble. But they usually get back up and go back into a full sprint. So it feels like Pagon is going to be the easiest place for them to say, cool, let's just put all our pressure right there, get him super far ahead, and then we'll figure everything out from there.
And it does get a little bit easier with the
плюс-минус им где-то около меньше 25 лет, короче. Но у них в Смайте уже по 5000 часов на игру.
Посмотри наверх. Я им по 20.
А сколько им?
Они вообще выглядят по 35.
Да ну. Ну вот, я которого смотрю, да, постоянно, вот это Авасом Джейк.
You're right to highlight it. This
Он,
mid lane
ему
could be
22
where
года.
some sparks are flying early on.
We also saw,
Ну, сейчас
at least
покажет,
for
я
me,
тебе
Baba
скажу, кто.
Yaga, like last week, was kind of surprisingly void. I feel
Ну,
like there
как-то
were a
вот
lot
у
of
этого
opportunities where it's like, all right,
Кучерявого
Bob's open.
спросили, типа, сколько у тебя часов? Он сказал 4900
For a while, I think
часов.
she had maintained the
Найти.
100% pick man. Towards the end of the week, she started disappearing.
Нельзя.
Mage builds have been a really big topic of conversation, and since the Dragons have made it impossible to talk about it for their side, we can talk about it specifically with Pagon. Do you think the builds right now, like, you know, Bob is passive, stacking items, is that something you can go into? Are you avoiding those? I mean, where do you want to go with this god to get the absolute max amount of damage?
We have seen a few different styles of builds since this patch came through. It's been a lot of E-Staff, a lot of, you know, early Charon's coin. Of course, the Bob of the Prophetic Cloak has been a thing. We've even seen the Warlock stacking coming back. So if you're going first item into that staff, it most likely is the Warlock, just because Bob gets, you know, pretty good value from it. But at this point, I'm thinking, you know, a little bit tankier in the mid lane builds has been the call, just because you want a bit more survivability. You want HP steal as opposed to just raw damage output. You're not looking for that early burst damage any longer. You're kind of looking to win that sustained fight by proccing Soul Reaver and Ethereal Staff, things like that. And looks like Nika is going to be starting towards that
Вот
more
этому 22 года.
damage-oriented route, right? That first item is not going to be something like a
А
breastplate.
вот тот,
More than
смотри,
likely
который
gonna
с
be
ним
a
играл.
Chronos pendant, maybe even, you know, just
Он
that
вообще
full
возле
damage ornament.
40-ета ему.
We've heard so much about and we've seen at times, but not in this meta.
Ну, тоже
I mean,
где-то,
especially
ну, до
we just saw looking
25.
at Sot's health bar right now.
Yep.
Maybe not the most comfortable lane that he's going to be in. We
Правда, я
also
не
saw
помню,
a little
откуда
bit,
он,
though,
то ли
of
с
what the
Мексики, то ли
Sobek
с Парагвая,
is
что-то
meant
такое.
to
может.
bring. Didn't
Это
get a
как-то
kill,
влияет,
doesn't have
ну,
that
конечно.
maybe same pressure, right? Netroid. Marty does a lot of damage, but we're typically talking about him in about 15 minutes. Right now we might be talking about the duo lane, but a little early. Lasber was in the jungle. And he's still just hovering around right there. There's a ward between him
Просто на голову еще
and the duo
вылезет.
lane of the Warrior. Seems like he's not going to be able to get in there. Doesn't have that level 5. Can't jump over. So he's just going to have to back off right here. But the Sobek plucks.
Но мне кажется, чем ближе к этому, чем ближе к какому-то финалу и какому-то призу, тем тем они будут более аккуратно играть. Потому что в квалификациях они прям жестко играли. Ну, слушай, там непонятно как. Он не этот, он не китаец по факту. Он, походу, ну, типа, я даже не знаю. Какой-нибудь кореец, наверное, который в Америке живет. Ну, США. Потому что у него имя, ну, нормальное. Ну, типа, не китайское. Не, она кушает рядом просто.
Looks like it's still going to be successful from Mike. A little bit of poke back. Pluck, all right, but there's not a lot of follow-up. Everybody else went right. They're just going to farm things up. And that's kind of the other part of this, right? You had mentioned early game for Panatom and specifically on the Dodge G. Although now this fight might get a little more interesting. Pluck
Сейчас будет -1, походу. Нет?
I think that should be enough to get Mike out of there, away from the damage of Netroid. And away from the damage of who I've been trying to talk about, Panatom, who has just been insane in the right circumstances. I feel like we had a large meta last year where Dodgy was huge. And it feels like if he can get off to the right foot, could fall into that same category. Has the Palau walking up towards the shield.
Дуа проигрывает опять. Белый. А, нет. Очканули. Не стали добирать щит.
And let the Dragons run away.
Yep, smart call. You don't have your ultimate there. Mike would have been pulled back in and probably an easy first blood. So get away from the Palau and do not give Panatom that option. Solo lane is somewhere where I thought we might see some sparks fly, but given the fact that Sot's been playing relatively underneath tower, he is just getting out cleared as you expect from a Yorm. And the fact that Nika can just go into that World Serpent at really any point that Panatom heads over means that fighting does not seem to be the call over on the right side of the map. We've seen two attempted ganks towards the left, but it has
Пока что ровненько идут.
so, hey, we got a shield buff, I'm going to head over there, I'm going to look for something. If I can't find it, I'm going to back up. But through the Cosmos, Lasper can get active over on the right side of the map at any given moment, so you got to make sure your vision's on point. I'm pretty sure Panatom called this one out. There's a Ratatosker lurking by.
If there's anything I've learned over the years, probably don't want to 1v1 the Dodgy. Although early on, maybe Lasper has a little bit of an edge. Tries to avoid it the best he can, and does avoid it. But like you said, with both junglers getting caught out, Eyes
kind of slowing them down, stalling out those ults. It's a back for Panatom, and then the farm game here for Lasbra. And I'm kind of expecting that to be where things pop off, right? You know, we talked a little bit about Sobek, but there's some good disengage from Mike and Vote that a pluck, unless it's at the perfect time, is not going to be the end-all be-all over there. It feels like these junglers are the ones that are going to
У него
determine
Рио
what happens.
сбанили,
Yeah,
Серкет,
certainly
Хель,
will.
Атлас,
I mean, just like, already there's a
Немезида,
massive gold lead building up. You
Окуан,
may be wondering, where's that at, right? Duo
Вален,
lane for the Warriors is
Тот,
ahead. Pagon's a level up on
Форсет,
Zardes. It's just Nika. I
Афродита,
mean, he's
Нокс.
been clearing waves, which Achilles just cannot
Понятно,
do.
они забанили
Does
все,
not
что
have that
может
ability
Джейк
to get
играть.
these last hits. 800 gold just by getting those last hits on the minions or Assad. I mean, with this build he's went for, he has Bluestone to try and get a couple more, but a lot of this wave has been dying the tower, and because of that, the Yorm's going to pull ahead just naturally. Lasbra's going to gravitate to the right side of the map. He's like, wait, you got pressure, don't you? You can clear out, you can force a dash. If Sat's able to get the fatal strike off, shouldn't care too much about the rattle, but you got to worry about body blocks, of course. Lasbra still does have the blink, things like that. Especially when you have a magical solo laner you're up against, you're not building that defense.
It's a lot harder to try and work it in. Because then you feel awkward. You start rotating in, all of a sudden the jungler and the carries are shredding you. I mean, you build any magical defense here, and it's literally just Nika that you're worried about. So maybe something Sat's going to have to, well, not even maybe, absolutely something Sat's going to have to figure out and overcome. Right now, though, it's Panatom trying to get away.
Так,
Barely any help.
минус
Name
по
one
нетом.
more auto, but up on the
Нет,
fallout.
ульта.
He's looking for some pulls, doesn't connect onto Lasbra with the chain.
Пеган
Gets him
придет
there,
помогать.
gets the CC,
Да,
walks
может
on
быть,
that,
сейчас
but
он
no damage. Gets
вылетит,
on the
нет?
other side, Pagon. Gets a little
Блин,
bit
он
onto
тоже на
Lasbra,
ульте
moves
ушел.
up onto the tree, bounces away. Jake caught
Минус
out of
Джейк.
position and killed off Mike. Gets first blood 7 minutes in.
I cannot believe that Panatom was able to get up into the powwow there. Unfortunately, still loses
А
the
могло
first
быть
blood.
минус
The
2.
Warriors, that is, with the Jade Dragons off of a beautiful gank, and Jake trying to set up to save his jungler ends up falling down. Lasbra was up in the sky. I was wondering if he was going to go in and try and just trade for the kill, but Panatom had blink, and that wasn't a trade he was willing to take. And so the Sobek goes down, and PBM gets the first blood there. Not the best option, but hey, as long as you're getting first blood, I'm pretty sure you're happy with that one. Could have gone to someone else, but you just wanted to guarantee that confirmation.
You just needed the kill at
Yeah,
this point.
you just need to guarantee that lead and continue pushing forward. And so far, the Jade Dragons have been finding very good success this early on.
Yeah, you had mentioned it, just shy of 2,000 gold at this point. And that's off of a first blood and a really, really solid solo lane right now. Hovering around 1,800, but you know, we're starting to enter the conversation 8 minutes in, around the time we've seen some really early Gold Furies. And then give it another few minutes and we'll be talking about Pyromancers. Might even be looking at more kills. Or at least invades. Lasbra and Nika walk in, take the blue buff. Zardes and Mike try to make Pagon's life just miserable. And so far it seems to be successful enough. They've been able to strip away the green buff fairly often. Panatom finally able to turn that one back. And so right now, I would argue that the Warriors are stifling the lead for the Dragons, but not quite showcasing what they can do to pull it back.
Yeah, and it's a little unfortunate because the only Warriors
Я не за
are
дракона.
leaning more towards late game, right? You've got Pagon stacking up Warlocks. Awesome Jake is going for that Prophetic Cloak. All of these items, and I would say characters as well, given the Marty and the Daji want to wait a bit to get online, are slating towards late game, but the Jade Dragons have no problem sitting back and saying, hey, let's get these double ADCs online, right? We haven't seen Zardes try to fight anyone because he doesn't want to. This Jingwei wants to farm up, wants to go a little bit later in the game. The Jade Dragons, I'm sure, are fine with saying, hey, you guys just want to sit back until 30 minutes into the game and then we'll try scrapping. It's not like it's easy to kill a build that Pagon will be going for late in the game, right? If Baba Yaga gets full slotted, she can be a menace. But still, it's not like they're afraid of getting Zardes and Vote to full 6 slot. Like, that is not something they're worried about.
Now, do you agree? Mifflin on the desk had said that, you know, he thought the Dragons had something that was more pick-oriented, really good at coming in, getting 1 or 2, versus the Warriors feeling better in the late game team fight. Agree with that assessment of how this is rolling out?
It's difficult because I have a problem with how the only Warriors might want to initiate a fight. You see, it's very easy for Mike. He can just do that. Even if he gets plucked back, he just dashes out immediately, gets a heal, and he's all good. Jake has to be so careful about who he plucks because if he's not plucking consistently, no one's pulling beats for Panatom, and his life gets a little bit harder. But if he's not going for plucks,
no one's pulling beads, and the Oni Warriors have no
Well-
engage. And of course, even if he does land, you see what happens late game to a Sobek that plucks an ADC. Sometimes you just get stunned by Horus, sundered, knocked up, and you're dead on arrival. So the Oni Warriors are going to have a rough time trying to engage, but they can always just sit back, wait for the Jade Dragons to try and mess up, and doesn't look like this is a mess up. Looks like this is
Я
a
пока
big
не знаю,
opportunity for
возможно,
the Gold Fury.
I mean, we saw
ну, в
one
полуфинале
new
этот будет
additions
не до 3, а
that's
до...
charging up currently in the Stygian
Нет,
Beacon.
возможно,
And
да,
the Dragons
как
use
раз
the
таки
opportunity
до
while
3
it's waiting
будет.
to just go ahead and walk over, take a Gold Fury. And so Trelly,
Потому
we've
что
been
тогда
talking
было до
gold
2
on
побед,
gold
сейчас я
on
не знаю,
gold. It's
может быть и
been
до
one
3.
kill, and they are pushing, what is that, like 3,000, 3,400. If they get the beacon, with what we see pressure-wise afterward, Pyromancer may be on the table as well. Dragons could be knocking on a 5,000 gold lead pretty soon with very little contest.
Yeah, it's disgusting how much they're able to grab so far.
Что Jade Dragons их всех
With the
перекачивает
beacons
на
spawning,
уровень
and I
минимум.
expect a rotation. I think that Nika has been able to pull ahead
Иди.
a pretty solid lead in solo lane.
Idiot.
Once that Yorm shows up,
Ганг
could be annoying to deal
на
with.
соло.
Lasbra
Вон.
has to try and body block the fatal strike here. Sot does have his way out, so he's not in any more danger. He will just be able to walk backwards. But again, puzzling. It does seem like the Oni Warriors are just not worried, like they're just kind of stalling. And because of that, the Jade Dragons walk up, they use that girdle to just burn the objective, and they're going to continue to try and do so.
Well, they have definitely had, the Warriors that is, a few games, right, throughout this year that have
Так.
not gone the way they would have wanted. Some
Сейчас
more so
будет
than others.
файт за этот.
They have yet
за
to lose a set.
маяк.
Dragons winning game 1 could be a huge way to step forward. Still a lot of Smite to play before that can happen, though. Talking about a pretty big gold lead. We're still only talking about 1 kill. A late game team fight gone awry. Suddenly that lead feels like it doesn't mean anything. Being said, Trelly, we got to make it to late game. 12
Так,
minutes
Майк
in.
начинает
Beacon
файт.
is up. Jake's going to stand on that one. You had mentioned maybe some rotations. Nobody so far from the Dragons even contesting it.
Jade
3/4 away
Dragons
full for
отдают?
Jake. Now
Нет, не
3
отдают.
members of the Dragons there. And it's going to be contested right now. Warriors waiting for a rotation.
Никто не хочет проседать еще
Soul
больше,
Laners
чем...
slowly making their way over here. Numbers
Я
advantage for the
4000 уже
Dragons gonna
перед.
dwindle as the Warriors show up. Good pluck on the Mike. A lot of damage following. Not enough to
минус...
burn through him.
Нет.
There's
Beacon's
Sot.
gonna be
Все-таки сейчас
flattened.
будет
There's gonna
минус
be the execute.
Майк, да.
First blood there for the Warriors finally
Соло,
online.
как обычно,
And now they're trying to chase down a little more.
Жестко
Nardes TKO'd, Vote
напал.
knocked away as well. Beacon goes the way of the Warriors in a successful fight.
Маяк забрали.
Expected a quicker rotation, but slow but sure. Both Soul Laners did decide to walk over, and in this case, Sot makes a bigger impact. Mike steps forward, feels like he's safe, he can get out. He's like, I've still got plenty of HP here. Unfortunately, forgets about the fatal strike. No one was able to body block it. That's an easy execute and a return kill, as well as a beacon confirmation. That buff is going to come in handy here.
У Ласбра, скорее всего. Ну,
Ну,
вообще у Jade Dragons у многих может быть, потому что они выигрывали мир.
It seems like they just want to walk up, double ADC objectives, and get out and not try and fight, right? They're just trying to push that gold lead already. Going for the pull. Nardes is here, and Mike's tanking it up.
Jake should be able to
Насколько я помню, тут у одного только из них.
Panatom, Pagon, Sot in the neighborhood. They're going to go for Nika instead. The lockdown's
Минус
good.
Ника, нет?
We talked
Нет
about this
ульта.
earlier.
На
Turn
ульте
to the World
уходит,
Serpent.
просто чтобы не умереть.
Jump away. And it's pretty easy for the Jormungandr to disengage there, but successful peel away from the Pyromancer, so the Warriors happy with their rotation.
А вон, World Champion Пеннитон, наверное.
Standing in
Он
the
выигрывал
1-2, trying to save his purple.
позапрошлом
Not able
году.
to save it. Stays
Ну, в
alive.
другой
Coming
команде.
out as a huge win when Lazarus over there. So the Warriors now, Trelly, not only the kill, not only the beacon, but doing a lot to pump
Как
the
раз таки он
brakes
был
of
в
the
Jade
Dragons,
Dragons,
slow
когда
down the
выиграл.
Blinking on Anika there just shows how tanky he was. Again, Fatal Strike wasn't even available, so there was no way they were getting a kill. It was more so just a damage check. Like, okay, this guy's got Glad Shield, he's got Heartward Amulet. If we don't bring the Execute to the table, we are not going to be able to find a kill. But starting up the Pyromancer, Nika sniffs this one out and immediately puts a shutdown. But Lazarus in the sky.
Yeah, what's he gonna look for? Goes for the knock-up, not able to connect onto Pagon or Jake. Has to dash away immediately, so an ult down from the Dragons. And a big one at that, too. Although Nika's has recharged, that Chronos Pendant helping work.
Очень
Pretty good
аккуратно
numbers on the
пытаются
cooldowns
играть.
here. Shelly, I thought we were going to see another grouping for a Pyro, but instead, Dragons and Warriors both scatter.
go back to their lanes. Let us rest a little longer.
It was a bit of a grouping, right? They attempted.
Teensy bit.
Yeah, they said, hey, damage check.
Ультит. Натроид. Заберет? Вот, нет, не забирал. Но, скорее всего, доберет его. Понятом, да, добрал.
It's just that easy for a dodgy. Panatom up 1-0-1. Feels like a solid start. Matching, at least in terms of level right now. Jake, in no man's land, uses the ult for disengage, has the knockup. Dash is good. And I can't believe this. He's actually walking out of this one. So long as Mike doesn't have anything crazy to say about it. Doesn't look like he's going to.
Джейк почти умер.
Almost punished for positioning. And that's the deadly side of Sobek we see, but
О, Ника уже перекачивает на 2 уровня.
keeps him alive on this day.
Yeah, I mean, he plays it perfectly. He cancels the ult as quickly as he can, tail whip to disrupt, and plucks out. But before then, I mean, Vote wasn't even that far out of position, just gets aggressed on by Netroid. So much die potential from Panatom. Was being greedy with the beads. It's like, I really don't want to use these if I don't have to. Finally goes for it. And then it didn't matter. You see the shell go down, the beads go down.
Они Warriors уже должны как бы слегка более ответственно подходить к объектам, которые они захватывают, потому что они начинают уже проигрывать по объектам. Тотема 8/4. О, Урия уже 2-0.
Netroid left on his own. Panatom was back at base. The other two hanging out mid.
Слишком уверенно начинают J Dragons.
Like you said, free objective, and you know what? They're going to take it every step of the way. 4,000 gold, 16 and a half into the game, 3,700 experience, and that, at this point, is starting to feel maybe even more important than the gold, right? A couple of levels. You see one level in duo, you see one level in mid, but 2 levels over there in solo. A lot of that experience is just Nika, which is maybe why his presence commanding enough to force the Warriors away from the Pyromancer.
Как-то странно, Джейк перекачивает саппорта J Dragons, но не триоид про этот, наоборот, в недокаче по сравнению с АДК. Как будто бы Джейк больше дамажил или больше полезных каких-то действий производил. А, ну да, он же участвовал в этом, в одном из 2 киллов. А Нейтроид, по идее, вообще не участвовал. Нет, у него 2 ассиста, значит, по идее, должен.
And Lasbra is nearby. I was wondering if he tried to go up to the sky for once again a shield buff, but does not think there's an opportunity to go in for the fight here. And it's actually SOT who was trying to get some good ward vision down because the J Dragons, they want this Pyromancer, and they've got a rotation. They're in no hurry. They're not going to go for it. They just wanted to see if they could get that extra ward vision down.
I think a lot of the conversation we had about the Dragons draft was like, is their early game going to fare against the Warriors? Like, okay, they look pick-oriented, but Dardes is going to get pushed in. And then Dardes gets the tier 1 tower first, seemingly controlling pretty well Pagon as of right now.
Так, второй маяк.
Most of that didn't matter. There's 3 kills, 20 minutes into
Такое
the
ощущение,
game.
что не Warriors собрались этот
You know, the first 6 levels don't...
чисто на маяках выехать в этой игре, потому что второй маяк подряд они пытаются захватить. Точнее, не отдать. Ласбора перегруппируется на мид.
Stygian Beacon on the board, capture point controlled right now. Jake and Sot standing around, but they're gonna give that one up pretty quickly. Panatom looking for a kill, but might be getting killed. Lasber gets up onto the branch, just like Panatom's on the powwow. Panatom needs to get out of here, but Lasber's waiting for him, crashes down, and gets the kill, and now Netroid is surrounded by 4.
Минус Нейтроид. Минус вот. Минус сам Джейк.
But they've lost 3 in the process. They need this kill onto Lasbra. Pagon leading the way in damage.
2 в 3 размен. Сейчас, походу, будет 2 в 4. Нет, 3 в 3. 3 в 3, 3 в 4. 4 в 4. Снова соло делает все.
Goes after the Pala with 1 HP maybe.
Of course, Lasper was also relatively weak, but you just sit there and wait. If you're gonna be on the tree, you're like, okay, where are you gonna land? I got all
Ника
the time in the
слишком
world.
жестко
Eventually,
перекачан.
Phantom drops down.
Стигийский
Lasper's able
маяк
to get
так
that
никто и не
return kill,
захватил.
but lands in the waking arms of
Джейк
Pagon,
сейчас
who dishes
захватывает
out so
стигийский
much
маяк,
damage
помогает ему
from the
соло.
home sweet home. And then you just look at the
Вот
Jade Dragons
сейчас...
once again, we're chasing through.
Нет.
Nika goes in the world surface.
Джейд
Says, hey,
Дрэгонс, походу,
I hit the
забили
first one, I get
на
the Aegis
маяке.
for the second one. Eventually, Pagon, I'm gonna have to find this kill, and he does. 4 for 4, but the Oni Warriors are able to grab the Stygian Beacon afterwards, so I guess you call that a small win in their favor. That extra buff does go a long way. So the Oni Warriors, despite being down in that farm, have been able to pull ahead kills finally in this game. But the Fury is available, the Pyromancer is available. There's still a lot to group up and fight over.
They've got 2 for
Но
3 of those objectives.
если будет групп файт, то по идее у него Warriors получше уже. Потому что они...
And it feels good to pick up. 2 of them already make you feel really solid. The third one, Charlie, it's going to give us the Titans running down the lanes. And right now, they're all looking pretty even. So it's going to be fun to see where those end up in the next few minutes. It is crazy to think about that fight, though. I didn't even realize, like, they started with the beacon. And then even after everyone had died, the beacon was still left standing. A little bit of a rotation. All it takes is Jake and Sot, the ones who started it all, to be able to pick that up. And we did just see a little bit of a slice in the gold lead from the Dragons. And so far, capped out, the max they've been able to pick up has been the 4,000. It's just about the Warriors trying to get some of these neutral objectives in their favor more than the beacon. Pyro, a Fury. We're almost 22 minutes in. Fire Giant should be on the board as well. So it's just the question mark where they go with that. Netrioid meets Lasber in the jungle. Well, the Dragons pick up the Pyromancer themselves. They're going to start it. They have the damage, but do they have the confidence?
Lasper's up?
Yeah, Lasper's going to be in the air. What's he going to look for right now? This might just be the rotation for the Pyro. Full commit. And they're going to jump down on that one.
Джейд Драгонс забирает спокойно без какого-либо сопротивления пироманта. Минус пол РБР Майк. Соло опять убивает в который раз. У него уже 4-0. Джейк спасается бегством. Даджи в то время понятом на Даджи забирает соло-линию, скорее всего снимет правый... Нет, не пошел на правую башню. 4000 перекачев в пользу Джей Дрэгонс так и остается. Хотя они уже на 2 опережают. Соло начал забирать Фурию. Ласбра попытается этому помешать или стильнуть ее. Явно попытается ее стильнуть. Нет. Увидели, что Джей Дрэгонс забирают ПГ. Намного важнее, чем Фурия.
That's enough. Charlie, Gold Fury not going to get picked up by the Warriors. They're still hovering at the same gold mark they've been at, but they stalled it, right? It plateaued at 4,000. And it has been hovering around that exact
Соло опять один.
for over 10 minutes.
Джейк к нему прибегает.
Which admittedly, the longer the game goes, the less the 4,000 really feels like it's making that huge of a difference. Still pretty big, but something that with late game damage, especially from a Baba Yaga, especially
Теперь Джей Дрэгонс забирают Фурию.
could be matched.
У него Warriors перегруппируются. Понятом ультит. Дардес не уйдет далеко, по идее, сейчас притянется обратно. С двух сторон от Фурии. Они опять порасходились в разные стороны. Ну, короче, никто не хочет, чтобы это оставаться в меньшинстве.
This was a curious conversation brought up when I saw the changes to Relic Dagger, I was wondering if these double hunter comps would fall off because the Bewitched Dagger that Awesome Jake picked up, he's also got Horrific Emblem. There's just so many ways, Guardian Mail from Sot, to try and deal with double ADC compositions.
Джей Дрэгон снова заходит на Фурию,
Those sort of
но тут
things.
только
We
соло.
haven't seen it too much on objectives because
Подтягивается
they're just
Пеган и
getting shredded.
Ависом
That's what's
Джейк,
happening here.
но осталось совсем чуть-чуть, ее только можно стильнуть. Нет,
Taken
не
by the
стильнули.
Dragons, no problem. Little presence
Просто
from the
отдают.
Warriors, but nothing to be able to cause a considerable change in their aggression.
Почти все
Now it's just
объекты
Fire
отдали.
Giant that's left up. Look, we're 25 minutes in.
Бесплатно.
5,000 gold separating them. And Trelly, I feel like we haven't even gotten to see the full 5-on-5. I guess whatever you that 4-for-4
Очень
trade
странная
left
стратегия. Такое
count
впечатление, что они
Fight pretty much.
либо не
nothing
этот,
else.
Yeah, we haven't seen too much scrapping.
с плохим этим, с плохим пиком
We got one more
вышли на
chance
эту игру.
to
И
try and
что
see
им
if
не этот,
these Titans do
не
start
нравится. И
marching
они
down.
решили просто, ну,
But it seems
спокойно
like the J-Dragons
довести ее
jumped
до конца
Fire
и не
Giant
сильно
first, you know, and then the Oni Warriors
обосраться,
aren't
скажем так.
nearby. We've seen the
Либо я не
response time
понимаю,
there. It's
либо у
been,
них
let's
есть
focus
какая-то
for a second.
на маяки
So
какая-то
everyone on the
стратегия,
side
что
of the
после
Warriors
маяка
are
файт
sprinting
будет
over, they
сильно
use all their
большой.
escapes, they just try to get there as quickly as possible because look at the J-Dragons builds. I mean, they've got the Xyz, they've got the Frenzies, they've got Shoguns.
Джейк
And
один
they're
на
building
миду.
to shred through not only tanky targets but objectives, right? That has been the call so far. In team fights, does work relatively the same. Awesome Jake.
Прятаться на Бабе Яге, в кустах этих, это то же самое, что из-за угла с пузом выглядывать. Тебя все равно видно. Соло захватывает стигийский маяк.
Same can be said for Nika though. Rotations in the mid, everyone actually except for Lasma.
Это перекрывают.
He can step up.
Jay Dragons.
Standing in the perfect spot, but Jay,
Ависом Джейк
he's not. He gets
минус.
melted easily by Voten now. It's a 5v4.
Теперь
Sot
4 в
can't get out
5,
of this one.
4 в
Body
3.
blocks are good.
Ой,
And
точнее,
2
5,
kills for the Dragons
3.
in the blink of an eye. Beacon gonna go their way. And now it's about
Третий
Nika.
стигийский
A
маяк
little bit of poke thrown
А,
towards him.
у
taking it up
Warriors
that he doesn't
проиграли.
care. And a Horus ult from Mike gets the
С
Dragons
мида
right
пойдет
onto the Fire Giant.
Титан,
Titans are gonna be running
еще и
down
под
mid.
ФГ.
The Dragons won't care. They'll have 5
Скорее всего,
strong
Джей
with the
Драгонс
FG.
выиграют сейчас это все, потому что слишком мощная будет поддержка для Титана, еще и бафом от ФГ.
Jake says, okay, I'll blink in and pull vote. He got beads.
Yeah.
That was it. Jake died immediately, and that's exactly what's going to happen. There's no one else who's able to get in there and pull beads like that. Unfortunately, just does not happen because of that fact.
Тем временем Джей Драгонс чистят абсолютно все объекты на карте.
Maybe a tier 2 tower, but at this point with the pressure that the J Dragons have for themselves, I wouldn't be surprised if we just save it for Phoenix, decide to go in, and see what you can do there. So much aggression though. The J Dragons with this double hunter composition have finally found, you know, that momentum. It was stuck that gold lead for quite some time, but seems like no tanks on the side of the Oni Warriors can really stand up to what they've done so far.
I mean, even the Titan can't stand up to what the Dragons have to offer. Order Titan driven back in the blink of an eye. The Warriors unable to step forward. I mean, Trelly, this game, look, 7-7 for the kills. 10,000
Почти
gold
фуловый
in favor
Титан
of
от
the Dragons.
Джей
A lot
Драгонс.
of that early on started in
Скорее
solos,
всего,
and
и
then it's
башню
just
второго
been
порядка
aggressive
тоже
from the
снесет.
Dragons. Neutral objective
Вообще
control.
ничего
Every
нету
single
у
one
Они
that's been
Warriors
taken,
против
gone away the
этого.
Dragons. Like you said, maybe trying to make a little bit more happen. Tier 2 is going to go down here to the Titan, but the Titan should fall shortly after. So now we're back to normal Fire Giant siege for the Dragons. 2 runic bombs from Mike. They're going to go ahead and fall back. Primal Fury spawning up in a second. A lot of gold still left on the map. And they're going to play towards left.
Последняя башня осталась, и, скорее всего, Джей Драгонс сейчас ее и снесут. Лазба перекрывает подход через баф на саппорта. Даджи его преследует, но все башни разрушены. Просто все объекты почистили Джей Драгонс. Ничего не оставили, и все, и я так понимаю, не собираются оставлять особо.
Either way, the 1v1 doesn't happen. Phantom decides against it and does continue farming. The Jade Dragons go on back to base and prepare for their next siege. They've got time for one more attempt if they would like to, but it would be risky. I mean, they could go to the skies, drop a double runic bomb. There's still 3 birds that they have the opportunity to go for, but that timer running low. 1 more minute.
Yeah, not a lot of wiggle room if you're trying to knock down a Phoenix. That being said, we've also seen objectives get shredded in the blink of an eye. So if you only have a minute left, Phoenix in the right circumstances get Dardes and Vode in there with 2 runic bombs. Suddenly, that Phoenix is gone. We'll see if they can get things going. Panatom back, stalled out. Lasbro.
По левой линии проходят Jade Dragons и, скорее всего, снесут сейчас первого Феникса вслед за башнями. АВСМ Джейк тормозит двоих, но уходит минус. Пока что ничего не получается у Warriors. Ну нет, еще и не ГГВП. Был такой... В этом сезоне был такой матч, когда они проиграли, по-моему, 7 фаеров, короче, всех Фениксов им выносили. Ну, правда, конечно, не с Jade Dragons, но все равно. И они в итоге 1 файт выиграли просто, и все, и снесли.
Dragons managed to walk in, get a kill, get the Phoenix, and get out.
I mean, that would have been a decent call, too. The Jade Dragons ult in. They assume they have a little bit more damage than they do. They didn't bring minions, so Mike didn't really get the perfect of the skies up. But what it did do was bait in awesome Jake. This Sobek
Джейк до сих пор 19 уровня.
I mean, if you look at that build, that prophetic cloak is not stacked. You essentially have a sovereignty and some HP to your name. It is not enough to try and go in for a pluck aggressively, really, ever. It's just not enough. And because of that,
ну да, пока что он не смог настакать на 2-й уровень плаща. Но тут на самом деле нет такого, как чтобы прям совсем ГГВП было, но все равно есть небольшой снежный ком, но на этом уровне уже все 20 уровня, и практически все предметы прокачаны. Это да. Джейк еще не закупился последним предметом, он предпочел прокатать варфлаг, а не купить какой-то 6-й предмет уже. Такое впечатление, что они не успевают фармить просто по сравнению с Jade Dragons. Jade Dragons просто все выносит, все, что есть на карте. Так, начали немножко с ФГ. Сот пошел это все разруливать, но, скорее всего, он закончится. Да, он закончился. Ласбра успел на самых минималках уйти. Очередной ФГ для Dragons, да. Веган пытается забайтить Ласбра. Байт удался, но не удалось попасть. Ласбра все-таки убивает его с 3-го раза. Ну, скорее всего, да, все это ГГ. Если здесь, конечно, сейчас ничего не будет, Джейк... Ну, на самом деле, Титан, но Джейку засчитали. Двоих не забрали, все. ГГ.
I mean, listen, the early pressure from Nico was insane. Of course, the Yorm was going to rotate and do big things. The Sobek was a question mark for me from the start. All of that made sense. But watching Pagon just lazy back twice right next to Lasbra with both relics.
Нет, первый матч только. Ну, первая катка. Либо из 3, либо из 2, либо из 7. Не знаю. Я не уверен, что здесь в полуфинале что-то, ну, другое будет. Я точнее не знаю, до скольки они играют. Предыдущие матчи были победа из 3 матчей. Ну, типа 2 победы, значит все. Ну, Джей Dragons сделали именно то, что у Warriors сделали каждую катку предыдущую. Они забирали объекты, поэтому у Warriors даже ничего не смогли им. Best of 5? Да, Best of 5, значит до 3 побед. Плюс я думаю, что это еще пик сыграл в худшую сторону для Warriors, потому что явно видно, что Джейк не очень хорошо сыграл на этом. Слева, конечно, все киберспорт. Абсолютный киберспорт. Телосложение киберспортивное. Пока музычка. 5 минут. Так, звук сейчас возвращаю, подожди.
Jake's gone, and then there's not really feeling like there's much team fight after that.
Да. Все то же самое говорят. Джейк был не очень хорош. И 5 в 4, считай, был файт каждый. Ну, не знаю, может быть, просто не этот бок, может быть, билд, может, что, хрен его знает.
With Panatom forced to retreat back towards that tier 2 tower, and that tends to repeat itself through a few of
Возможно, они с самого начала как бы... Ну, слушай, Смайт не такой крутой этот, чтобы сильный мерч был.
Every single neutral objective, Fury and Pyromancer, goes to the Jade Dragons. By the time that first Fire Giant was in their control as well, they were very easily able to knock down their first Phoenix, and from there, the Oni Warriors never quite able to find their footing. And it starts early. The Jade Dragons find their kills, they find their action very early in this game, even in trades coming out ahead because they were able to accomplish something afterward. Almost an inverse as well as what we had seen from the Oni Warriors throughout the regular phase. So often the conversation was, yeah, their fights aren't clean, but they always do something after. You know, they might go 2 for 1 or 1 for 1, but the Oni Warriors are the ones generally grabbing the Gold Fury or the Pyro.
Ну тут, конечно, Ласбрак хорошо под этот подхватил.
The Jade Dragons dominating.
With that, the Jade Dragons start out on the right foot here in this best of 5. Game number 1 to them. Now still need 2 more games.
Дадзи тоже 11 тысяч всего.
Of the Smite Summer Masters, but double hunter composition gives at least a little bit of a...
По сравнению с Рататоском, который 17 с небольшим. А Джейк вообще, Джейк так и не закупил последний предмет. Видимо, уже было не это. Не до того.
Yeah, just a little bit of utility, a little bit of safety, never hurt anybody. I wonder, J-Mac, where do the adaptations begin, though?
Right.
When you look at the slash lines, yeah, I mean, it's like 7-1 for Lasbra, so maybe you want to put some eyes on Ratatasker, but was it entirely Ratatasker making everything happen? He was secure.
Посмотрим, если сейчас они не этот, у кого будут банить. Ну, Серкит, понятно.
What the Oni Warriors elect to change here. The only thing I could say solidly, and even then I'm not holistically confident in it, is that we probably won't be seeing another Sobek.
Yeah, maybe a bit of a rough one there for Jake. I mean, it's a great guy to go in and get initiations, but unfortunately he ran into the late game Sobek problem. You go and you pluck, they have beads. Well, I guess I die here, especially with all the CC the Dragons had lined out alongside. But so far, no changes in the bans just yet. Still sticking with
Афродита, ну там сейчас Нокс пойдет 100%. Все походу то же самое, что и в прошлый раз. Что и в первый бан.
So maybe then kind of, where do you change your first pick? Because last time around it was Marty. Nitroid not really having a poor performance by any stretch, but didn't really feel like we got the value of the Marty first pick from the Warriors.
Yeah, I wonder, when you grab Marty in first slot, it's almost a threat. Hey, now we can double hunter composition. Maybe you have to adjust your bans on the other side, or maybe you adjust your picks.
Вернул. Ну да. Видимо, АДК у них тоже не понравился. Ну, Нокс, понятно. Ну, короче, они сейчас всех... Они тупо банят всех, на ком играет в основном Джейк или Соло. Типа, видишь Джейка в команде, ну, бань сразу Нокс. Потому что, ну, как шутят эти ведущие на английском. Типа, у Джейка 100% побед на Нокс. Это, конечно, не так. Но... Парсик, чего ты лазишь? Лезет везде. Ты хочешь? Не надо пробовать мою вкусняшку.
It is an adaptation from the Oni Warriors. Jormungandr in the first slot.
What a meta we're in.
I can't.
Соло отбирает Йормун. Ага, эти решили Ямаю забрать.
By any stretch of the imagination. And on the other side, the Jade Dragons will be taking the Marty for themselves again, creating an opportunity to look towards a double hunter draft, and it's something they had done even without him, so you gotta imagine it's only better now if the Jade Dragons go towards it once more.
Мгм.
And a Yamoja as well. Just sustain, team fight.
И отдали,
presence.
соответственно,
That's
Гору.
what you could want from the support.
Mojo Marty for the Dragons. Immediate response back.
Конечно.
Pick that Yorm in the first slot and then round it out with an Izanami.
Вон, смотри. Сколько ему лет, по-твоему? Саш.
Taking the horse away from Mike after he went ahead and picked the Yamoja there. So it looks strong in game.
Ну, просто, мне кажется, он... азиаты, они все выглядят моложе, чем есть.
One of the few players in the league has been consistently going back to. We've seen some of the other, maybe older heads of the league. We've seen Zapman, Barracuda kind of stray over towards this pick a couple of times, but the only one really consistently going back to this Izanami pick has been Netroid on the Oni Warriors.
Just
Нельзя
potentially
собаке
the highest pressure
шоколад.
hunter in Smite.
Слушай,
Having those
Just
piercing
получше.
auto attacks on every single
Я
auto
ничего
attack
никому
can
не
jam
давал.
waves incredibly easily. Nobody deals with Bastions as quickly as Izanami either. The ability to hit both at the same time, just incredibly valuable.
А
You
этому
have
сколько?
decent boxing potential in lane, so long as that first ability is available. And it's not as if you scale poorly into the late game. So certainly a strong pick as of now, and one that should alleviate some of the issues that the Oni Warriors had run into in game one, which is the early game. The Jade Dragons won out handily. at
Кого
that
зовут
portion of
как?
the match.
Пегана
And a
как
little more
зовут?
pressure on your side could help
А,
out.
как-то на D.
Now for the Jade Dragons to round out their top three before we jump into the second wave of
Блин,
bans.
забыл.
And this is what we're going to see now after the bans are done. We start getting into these last couple of picks. Is this a lone Marty comp for the Jade Dragons? Is this a dual hunter comp?
Дэниел его
for
зовут,
the
вот.
Dragons? I think that's maybe
Вспомнил.
the question I'm looking to see answered for the Dragons with that fourth, maybe with that fifth pick, to see if we're seeing a lone hunter or if we see the two hunters from this team. The only
Я
Warriors
знаю, как
set
зовут,
is where we see Pagon go
соответственно,
forward,
Джейка,
where
ну
we see
понятно, да?
Panatom
Как зовут
demonstrating on track.
Соло, я
Dragons
знаю.
trying to put a little bit of pressure
И
on
как
Panatom
зовут
and Pagon both.
Пегана, я
They
знаю.
fight
А
Evo
вот
and
как зовут
Dodgy.
Нетроида, я не
Warriors don't
помню.
want to see a potential double
А
banning some of the ones away
Пенни Тома
from
вообще
the
не знаю.
previous game. Both Cernos
Потому что
and Jinx
единственное, как я знаю, почему
So,
Соло
now
зовут и
what
Джейка,
mages
их
are
зовут
still
одинаково.
available if Pagon so
Jacob.
chooses, could still grab that Baba Yaga for himself.
Фу, блин.
Would
Луня.
be decent into the Yamoja, just being able to get over that wall consistently without having to rely on a Phantom Shell. Good deal of value there. I wonder. The Dodgy ban is interesting. I really would have just expected it to be Baba Yaga in that slot, especially considering Panatom's struggles to get involved in that Dodgy in game one.
Вонючка.
So I think the Oni Warriors now have a few options available for mid lane.
Ой,
at
всё,
least.
нет ничего.
Baba Yaga comes to mind immediately. Merlin as well.
Да, я думаю, Пегану еще меньше.
For the most part, deal with that Yamoja and the ability to dive on the side of the Jade Dragons. Defensive mages, very valuable. And a little
Если у
bit
него
more
имя
dot
Дэниэль,
in
он
the fourth slot for the Jade Dragons.
вряд ли
Sun Wukong
кореец, да?
locked in. Have we
Или
gone
он
back in
вообще не
time?
похож на
Yorm
корейца?
Gander, Sun Wukong meta.
Американской.
Very safe soul laners. Both have
А, у них
decent
так принято,
scaling to the
типа,
late
по-другому
game, decent
называться?
dive potential as well.
Хм.
Some of the
Ну, может
itemization
быть.
changes really have started to favor these two picks. It's good pressure on mages, and in a meta, at least based off of last
Ник
week,
такой,
where
я не
we've
знаю,
seen
что он
a few more
означает.
mobile mages
он
see
тут
priority
П,
raw comes to mind
он.
immediately.
Не,
Jormungandr and Sun Wukong
а,
decent
типа по
against
слогам?
picks like that.
Пеган, я думал, это этот.
It's such a large departure from how
Какой-нибудь
the
Пеган был,
first week of
типа.
this event had started. I mean, so much has changed.
Я думал,
in
Пеган
such
это
a
типа
little
как
time.
голубь, типа
That's
как
always the
пиджин.
beauty of events like this, especially when you throw them onto a brand new patch same week. You don't really have a whole lot of time to test things out, to see how it works in more of a competitive setting. You have your scrims, you have your casuals, your ranked teams that you can jump into, but you don't truly know how good something is till you get an opportunity to experience it competitively, see what some of the other teams have developed and cooked up over the time. And now we start to see it here unfold in the semifinals. Set
Нервничает,
game
видишь
number
как?
one now picked up in game two for the Oni
Смотри, там какой
Warriors.
чувак в
To
шортиках
determine if
сидит.
this one goes over to Pagon or Panatom. It seems that will be set mid over
О,
Pagon.
Пеган
Susano
Сусано.
going back to Panatom
Это
and
все.
jump.
A very fast composition from the Oni Warriors. Set and Susano put pressure on just about anybody. With E-Set to round out the draft. This is more interesting a selection than I think immediately hits the eye. Interesting in that we just don't see a whole lot of E-Set in general. And when we had seen it in the past, it was a bit of jungle from Sino and some support. But as far as mid is concerned, up against Susano, that wing gust, a great answer.
Самое интересное, да, когда камера переключает. Ну, не просто не
Very good as a full-on counter engage style pick. If Set wants to get active, wants to get aggressive, he's gonna have to deal with the instant stun, circle protection on your feet, plus silence and HP.
Все идет по плану, да?
For these all-in style picks to actually find the all-in until about third, fourth item, then things start to shift a little bit more so in favor of that set. It looks to me like the Jade Dragons have really got a composition that is going to scale well into the late and then deal with the problem picks of the Oni Warriors there. And if they are able to establish an early lead, the Jade Dragons that is, they've also got the best objective secure in Smite. Circle protection, unbeatable on Gold Fury, unbeatable on Pyromancer.
Не, у нее слишком волосы чистые.
The Oni Warriors, on the other hand, very strong pick-based composition, has pressure in the duo lane, has a soul laner that can be left alone on an island. You trust your Jormungandr to hold his own, so ignore that side of the map.
Интересно, как это отражается на игре, если Сет и Гор играют в одной команде.
So, if I'm on the side of the Jade Dragons right now, my entire concern is how do we deal with this early pressure? How do we make sure we're making it to that mid to late game team fight? And if you are able to get there, things will start to line up. The Oni Warriors, complete inverse. How do we make sure we just stomp the Jade Dragons into the dirt before they're allowed to group up as 5? I think it revolves almost entirely around this mid lane, how well this set performs. If you're getting a quiet set game, this composition tends to fall apart, I think.
Yeah, we've seen some quieter set games in the past where early game you don't really hear a whole lot, and then maybe late game the gas kind of gets turned up a little bit, but
У Warriors надо делать что-то с защитой объектов, потому что они все, абсолютно все объекты, как Фурия, ПГ, Пиромант, вот это вот все они проиграли. Они, по-моему, не проиграли только щит и то. Да, да.
Start off this set with a game 1 win for themselves. Finding a win in game number 2 would put them on match point. Can they do it? Are the Oni Warriors going to tie this one up? Let's jump in.
Она ж дедушка Fire почти усоп, да?
At this point is still an impressive feat for the Dragons. J-Mac even floating the idea of the Dragons going up 2-0. We'll find out throughout this one. As mentioned, Trelly, Gore, and of course Doug, who is going to be making sure we catch all of the action here in game 2. And look, you know, the Yorm looked really good last time around, though. The Warriors, they had a lot of community favor.
Смотри, как Yorm прыгает.
Not favoring them as much. Still favoring them, though, 55% to 45% here in favor of the Dragons. Very, very different teams. Dragons now load in with a Wukong. They got a Nemesis. They got an E-set. Very different from what we saw last time around.
Изида, конечно, не очень... Точнее, очень странный пик для этого, для...
Yeah, this is a night and day difference for me, the Oni Warriors composition. Of course, different for the Jade Dragons as well, but I had question marks about the Oni Warriors comp in game number 1. I don't have too much question marks about this one. Putting Pagon on set mid, a pick that he has played just how many times now, is a pick that he loves, and of course has a tremendous dive. Time on the Susano, which I don't think we have to talk
Это
about.
Susano такой скин.
Of course, we saw how good Nico was able to be on this Jormungandr last time, and now it's in Sot hands. So those kind of questions for me are already done. I like a lot better what the Oni Warriors have done with their draft.
Видишь, что они делают?
We are looking at the Jade Dragons. Lasper is going to lose a little bit of that aggression. He doesn't have the Ratatosker anymore. This Nem is going to have to sit.
Луна, ну пожалуйста, ну ты наглеешь.
Than a Ratatosker would. You don't really have that same level of that early stun, you know, things like that. But Nem still does have the ability to go for some early ganks. He's able to find someone stepping too far up in lane, you know, the slow, the double dash, that sort of thing.
Так, какой-то сразу резкий файт пошел на миду. Решили сразу не этот, не сильно джентльменничать, пошли просто сразу всех косить. И на дуо сразу прижимают.
In the right hands, the right build, late game does so much damage. Early game is just a nasty stun. Plus the silence you had mentioned. Engage, though, has been a little bit of poke here, a little bit of poke there for both Panatom and Pagon onto either Lasper or Dardes. They're still looking for that control, just now hitting level 3. Maybe the advantage they wanted. But this is what the desk was expecting, I think what you were expecting as well when you see the double assassin. Yeah, first blood definitely should be in the conversation, but also control over mid camps, control over.
У Warriors, походу, решили, что У них было очень мало урона по одиночным целям, поэтому взяли 2 убийц, чтобы шотники не уходили уже.
Yep, they go in for the blink play, doesn't quite work out. Dardes doesn't even have to use the beads, that's a well-timed wing gust, and Lasber also blinks.
Походу абсолютно скучно, что на дуо-линии, что на соло-линии, потому что ничего не показывают оттуда.
They showed their hand pretty early. They got double speed buff. They want to try and run down this E set if possible. There's only one mage in this lane, and that is going to be the target. Unfortunately, for Pagon, taking a lot of damage.
На Пенитома напали, но это достаточно быстро заканчивается. Хоть они и просажены, но тут как бы так мало хп, что не успеют просто. Просто они могут вырезать резко и все. Одной или 2 умелками.
Early fights, right? You're kind of trying to stack up that item, get some power online, and then look for that play. But I gotta be honest, we talked about it in game number 1 about how the solo lane may be not a graveyard. What's the opposite of a graveyard where there's no killing? Just anywhere else that's not a graveyard, essentially.
What is the opposite of a graveyard? It's, I guess, a hospital birthing ward?
Yeah, a parking lot, just anything.
Well,
really.
I was thinking, because, like, graveyard, that's where, like, that's full of dead people. So you need some, well, I guess full of alive people is a lot of places.
Well, that's what I was saying. You don't go to the graveyard to die. You have already died.
Oh, yeah, you've already died.
So just anywhere where people are being alive. In this case, there's a Wukong, there's a Yorm.
Yeah.
they're going to be alive over in the right lane, so I don't think there's too much time Penitom and Lasber want to spend near these guys.
Судя по всему, все-таки Йорм на соло-линии хорош. Лучше, чем кто-либо, потому что, ну, в их руках, по крайней мере.
It does feel like something like you go back to a certain age, like Greek philosophy, and it's just, what is the opposite of a graveyard? And then someone has a really good theory on it, and like everyone holds that as true.
Потому что в прошлые катки к этому моменту, к 5-му уровню своему, он уже проигрывал на 2 уровня. Сейчас он забрал уже 3 тотема и ни одного не отдал.
Took a little while, I think 7 minutes for first blood. Expecting something kind of similar. You had mentioned survivability, the opposite of a graveyard over here, and right? Maybe.
И даже очень вполне спокойно Сунюкуна пытается пушить потихоньку. Джейк улетел на базу. Особо ничего так в игре так и не происходит на самом деле. Не знаю, в прошлой игре тоже вроде как одного убили и все, и больше ничего не происходило. Смотрим, сейчас АДК остались одни на линии, мог бы быть какой-то файт небольшой, хотя бы попытка. Пенитом заходит в спину, но, видимо, там есть, ну да, там есть вард, и Ника не дает ему сильно так упороться туда. Бросили мид-лейн. Джейд Дрэгонс перешел PBM на Ямай уже тоже на мид помогать.
You know, because ESET has not been that prominent in the mid lane, we forget how good of self peel she really can have for a double assassin dive. You drop circle protection,
уже по некоторым даже
go in, try and get in melee range, try and fight.
По некоторым линиям перекач идет небольшой в пользу Only Warriors.
It's a lot of damage and a lot of CC. Of course, late game set may be a bit different, but for now, Pagon's right to respect who's standing in front of him, the opposition. Dardes on the E set. But we'll have to see exactly how safe he can be positioned as this game continues, because Penitom, I would argue, has become a master of getting to the backline, especially on a pick like Susano. He knows how to do it.
Пенитом забирает зеленый баф. Так, там Джейк впрягается в 2 в 3. Уже 3 в 3. PBM сейчас, походу, будет получать, нет? Джейк куда-то байтит их. Не добайтил.
Just hyping up how he's got ease of engage and then he just
Well,
whiffed.
the ease was there. Yeah, it's just hitting it, right? That's always going to be a little more complicated. Connects it this time. Blood is not yet to be spilled. It's all over mid camps. Panatom's still hanging around. With Pagon here, he would be a little
Соло
more
уже
concerned.
проигрывает
Dragons
пока.
will lose
Только
out
что
with the
выигрывал
concern.
один уровень, уже один уровень
Right,
проигрывает.
that
Какой-то
concern
странный
was well
просто
placed. Mid camps just
вариант.
split. And then the teams split. They don't want to fight. Not looking for anything like that just yet.
No, they are not.
It's all that transcendence, man. It's slowing things down.
Yep. How many? This isn't even that bad.
Какие-то
considering this
небольшие
four
попытки.
stacking metas back in the day. This is only 2 on the side of the Oni Warriors and only
Какие-то
one
небольшие
stacking
попытки
on the
были
side of the J-Dragons.
файтов на
It's more so just
начало,
how much damage
но
they
они
do.
все
Some
закончились, и
double
все
assassin
опять
of the Oni
фармят
Warriors, they
потихоньку.
have the ability to just get an easy
Вообще
1v1
без
in the
всех,
jungle,
без
upset
каких-то
Lazarus, bring some damage as
угроз
well, but he's 2
друг для
levels
друга.
behind. Phantom has been finding so much farm as of recent. So the J-Dragons this game have been on the back foot more often than not. You were talking about Netroid on the Iza, and he's been right here at tower line, just making sure that Vote can't step out. This is how well these boomerang auto attacks are able to clear the wave. You're usually going to get the better end of the 1v1 until Marty gets some items online. Looking for an attempt to kill Mike.
О, наконец-то файт. PBM получает на пол хп. Подтягивается Пенитом. Теперь 3 в 2. PBM. Все, PBM, скорее всего, отвалится. Да. First kill. Единственное, что они на троих, конечно, это все расписали, поэтому чуть-чуть поменьше хпшек им, экспишек, точнее, им дадут за это все. И сразу же своровали Purple. Warriors теперь пользуются тем, что там -1. Соло решил поагрессивничать и погонять лесника в лесу. Вот эта игра уже похожа на Oni Warriors. Хорошие файты за всякие объекты приводят к еще и размену в минус вражеской команды.
I guess little grass traps maybe to hide in the bushes. He's not able to step anywhere out of his tower at this point. Just saving death from above. More often than not, just for survivability for Marty here. So O's probably gonna be spending a good portion of his time just underneath that tower.
Mid camps cleared out by the dragons on either side. And Trelly, we're starting to get into Pyro / Beacon / Fury conversation territory. And so, for the Warriors, only 1 kill, but we've seen that potential, and very specifically, we are going to be seeing these transcendences, or this transcendence for Pagon, on the side of the Warriors finished by the time one of those big fights kicks off.
Oh, baby.
And I guess the question, I was actually just now seeing a little teleport there from Panatom, thinking maybe he's going to go in. The real question is with that finished,
Джейк начинает файт за Фурию, PBM и вот рядом. Ну, это такой байт в основном. Чтобы выцепить кого-то одного, начать его, скорее всего, добить. Фурия. Первая Фурия сегодня за полуфинал, которую забрали Oni Warriors.
And continuing that sort of streak. So, as you said, the rotation comes through. Easy pull. Nika decides not to make the rotation out. Like, hey, if you're going to go all the way over there, Sot, I'm going to clear some waves, attempt to steal a blue buff.
Ника пытается украсть синий, но Соло просто в последний момент успевает забрать, еще и чуть-чуть поддамаживает Нику где-то на 5-ю часть хпшек. Пенитом влетает, и, скорее всего, сейчас будет 2-й килл. Если, конечно, да, ульта. Только на ульте Ника уходит. Ну и помогает Пенитом забрать еще и баф у вражеского соло. Через 30 секунд маяк открывается, скорее всего там тоже будет какой-то файт. Трое с Oni Warriors почему-то на миду. Ну и никого нету от J-Dragons, так что особого толка там нет. Стоять. Начался захват маяка. Джейк потихоньку его держит. Двое против него, третий подтягивается. Соло, лес. Нет, соло, мид и поддержка. 2 в 3 файт, 2 в 4 файт. Опять Джейк просто в конце убегает шотный. Минус джангл от Пенитома. Ласбра не успел добежать до этого всего. А, нет, вот, не успел. Ну, стихийский маяк, скорее всего, за Oni Warriors, потому что вряд ли они уже будут вчетвером пытаться забрать это все.
And Charlie, I mean, you had called it. It's just last game.
Oh no.
Maybe even exacerbated. I'm looking at almost 5,000 gold here for the Warriors. 13 minutes in.
Vote's dead, I think. He shouldn't be winning this 1v1.
Yeah, he can't walk up too far. Oh no.
No. He has no idea.
Вот, пытается убежать от Пенитома, но тут не троит, и скорее всего это будет третий килл для Oni Warriors.
Oh, and that one's cyberbullying. The kill goes to the carry for the Warriors. And Charlie, welcome back to lane for vote.
Yeah, unfortunate. We've seen that play from Panatom a few times. He usually sits by the door, says, "Hey, you coming this way? Oh, you're not? Okay, I'll meet you at that tower. All right, now we sit by."
Так, Ласбра и ВМ пытается их наказать за наглость. Но Джейк пытается байтануть на пироманта. Там сзади у него Пенитом и соло.
And just finds so much aggression. Because of that, tower goes down, Bo loses his life twice, and the capture point still goes the way of the Oni Warriors. Pyromancer.
Теперь 5000 перекача в сторону Oni Warriors. Они пытаются забрать пироманта или просто байтят на него. Ну, скорее всего, и то, и то. Если заберут, хорошо, если просто забайтят, тоже пойдет. Джейк Майка станет.
Flipping the script on the Dragons here in game 2. Controlling all of the neutral objectives. Hell, at this point, all of the gold, 5,000 and counting.
Вот это больше похоже на игру Oni Warriors. Все объекты они стараются забирать. Ну или как минимум разменять в кого-то.
I mean, it's difficult because I did want to focus on what Dardes was building, right? You look at this E set, maybe he's going to get online a little bit later, but
Пенитом один на миду, все остальные бэкнулись.
It just doesn't do too much damage right now. He does have lots of pen, and that is the idea. You get a little bit of survivability, you get that pen, but it doesn't seem like circle protection is going to be just that one-shot capability. You can certainly out-confirm for some objectives if that's the play, but Dardes hasn't been stepping up. He's been just trying to match farm with Pagon because this set can get across the map so quickly.
Снова все Oni Warriors собираются вокруг Фурии, потому что она уже перезарядилась.
That's pretty far away from the Primal Fury. You remember how the last fight even started? Hey, let's go for the beacon, and then once Vote tries to
Но тут же соло и саппорт от J-Dragons. Ника заходит сзади, сейчас будет стилить. Скорее всего. Нет, не дают ему подойти, потому что он... Oni Warriors забирает Фурию, да, не дали подойти.
The Primal Fury picked up for the Warriors and Charlie. It's still hovering, plateauing around that 5,000 mark. But man, 5,000 gold 16 minutes in is noticeable. I mean, you're seeing tier 3s when there's tier 1s on the other side. It is a solid lead right now for the Warriors.
Yep, but unfortunately all the neutral objectives are gone, which means for now, a retreat call. I was looking at Netroid's build because when you're this far ahead and there's nothing else to go for, most teams sit around and do nothing. But the Oni Warriors in particular, we've seen 14-minute Fire Giants out of them with this Horus pick if they're able to ult over. And do you see where Netroid is? At the moment, it seems like he might be going for a lane swap. I don't imagine this is a Fire Giant pull. With the build that he's got currently, Executioner helps. And they have the DPS if left uncontested. But you'd think that they're just trying to get some towers, group up with their Izanami and see how much pressure they can get.
По миду идут. Они Warriors всей толпой. Кроме Соло. Соло идет по своей линии. Скорее всего, еще -1 Тауэр будет. Плюс еще Ласбра, нет? 3 в 3. 3 в 3. 4 в 3. Они Warriors вчетвером уже минус башня. Пеган ушел.
Charlie, you had called it. They're over here. What can they do with this aggression? Well, the answer is potentially a Fire Giant pull or a kill on Nico. They're looking for one or the other.
One more tier 1, why not? I mean, you just rotate over and whatever. It seems like wherever the Warriors go, the Jade Dragons disperse.
Так, сейчас будет...
It's not on the right side of the map.
Сейчас будет то же самое, скорее всего, с соло-линией. Тоже снимут башню вчетвером спокойно. Распределят урон и все. Единственный, кто это Пеган на миду, который против Ласбра и Сида, то есть против Мидера и Лесника пытается что-то сделать, но скорее всего сейчас... А, да, с ультой только уходит. Старается свалить... Ага, башню в башню. Разменялись. Камера не успевает переключаться, уже событий столько. Еще одного пироманта забирают, скорее всего, не Warriors, потому что вряд ли успеет кто-то из Jade Dragons забрать пироманта у них. И стигийский маяк забирать начинают Пеган, Соло и Джейк. Jade Dragons даже не пытаются на него зайти, чтобы как-то за него побороться. Второй стигийский маяк за этими, за Oni Warriors.
To get a little bit more farm here. But again, the Oni Warriors are being clinical. They're trying to grab everything they can slowly but surely, not overstep, right? This is not the, we're going to dive you under tier 2, we're going to force engagements, Oni Warriors. This is, let's try to get to level 20. Let's get maybe one more item online, upgrade starter item, something like that. Then we'll start baiting in these Fire Giant plays. And this was the lane swap I expected, just because SOTS teleport, right? So he can clear out vote, he can make sure that this Marty isn't just getting free farm over on left lane, and then teleport into FG whenever need, or even use the World Serpent for the halfway rotation if he really needs to.
Просто идет фарм. Странно, что Соло до сих пор один левел проигрывает, хотя они просто 3-0 все киллы. А, Соло не поучаствовал ни в одном килле, поэтому... Нику зажимают втроем. Вряд ли это будет, конечно, килл, но они просто отогнали его под башню. Скорее всего, сейчас будет переброс игроков правой к соло-линии, короче, на защиту башни.
Just like last game, we passed the 20-minute mark with 3 kills on the board. Difference is Warriors have all 3, and they're starting to push 6,000 gold. They can continue this rate.
Плюс 5700 по голде, плюс 4500 по XP.
Level 20 already there for Panatom.
Пользу Oni Warriors.
For Netroid. Charlie, they're giving us some breathing room though, right? Fury's up should be a pretty easy pickup for the Warriors. No contest from the Dragons.
Снова все на Фурии начинается. Втроем забирают Фурию. Никто даже не пытается им помешать.
But the level 20, that's what I'm looking for. That's when these star items start to get upgraded. That's when the Warriors might feel a little bit more confident going in for an FG. But even if they do, they got to keep their eyes on Dardes, right? That's the greatest steal potential they've been looking for. I mean, Mike, at times, has stepped up to these objectives and thrown some bubbles over the wall.
Yeah.
But if you want an actual Fire Giant attempted confirmation here, you got to get Dardes into the pit. And so far, I mean, I would assume his damage numbers are towards the lower side, right? I mean, this ESET has not been part of too much. I guess no one's been a part of too much fighting, but we haven't really seen what this ESET build can do. A lot of pen, so the tanks are not going to love it. But the question is, are you going to be able to be that lone confirmation? When Pantom's nearby, it can be sketchy. Those knockups, I mean, it's not going to affect Dardes too much, but the rest of the Jade Dragons might not want to step forward just because of the fear of how much damage this level 20 Susano can do. And he did just go back and upgrade that Bumba's Hammer. Might be the go button, but it seems like Pagan is also heading back to base, possibly trying to upgrade that Sigil.
Становится на защиту ФГ, Соло и Джейк. По идее, 3 остальных игрока должны подтянуться и начинать забирать уже.
But considering they've been setting up these ambushes, they've been sitting around corners, it may just be that the Oni Warriors don't want to just go in for an objective. They want to fight. If they can force anyone up, that might be the start of their engagement.
Нет, начали с пироманта.
Pyromancer, hey, it spawned. Netroid in the neighborhood. They're going to go ahead and take that one down, no problem. Good zone.
Пироманс.
From Sot.
Содзе дефает ФГ, начинает забирать ФГ. Джейк, Нетройд и Пенитом. Пеган заходит сзади. Соло, соответственно, дефает все это. Но Ника заходит. ПБМ заходит, Они Warrior забирает ФГ и забирают, скорее всего, Нику. И... Нет, не забирают. На ульте опять уходит Ника, но, скорее всего, его заберут чуть-чуть попозже. Все, Пенитом ультанул и забрал Нику. 4-0. Минус башня второго порядка по соло-линии, скорее всего, дальше они тоже будут идти.
I'm not gonna lie, I might have gotten baited by that Horus ultimate. When I saw Jake go up, I thought the whole team was leaving. They were just gonna let Nika go, but Pantom and Netroid stayed back. They said absolutely not. We're able to counter out that Solid Cloud, push down the tier 2 over on right, and now the Oni Warriors get to group up 5v4.
Все то же самое сейчас будет с остальными башнями, просто зайдут и заберут, скорее всего, не знаю. Ласбро пытается убить Пенитома тем временем, но башни тоже сносит. Одна башня осталась у Jade Dragons. И игра, которую постоянно показывали Oni Warriors, сейчас вот начинает вырисовываться. Последний маяк. Джейк забирает последний маяк, по крайней мере, стоит, ждет, пока он будет заряжаться.
As you said, are pulling objectives because it's the smart thing to do, because it further pushes on their lead, of course. But because they want to scrap, right? They want the Jade Dragons to try and step forward. The Jade Dragons are playing it smart. They recognize, hey, we don't have the itemization. We don't have those upgraded starter items just yet. There's no real reason for us to try and fight because it's not going to go well. So because of that, they've just been keeping themselves alive, trying stalling out.
И по дуал лейну пойдут титаны сейчас. И да, правильно, это то, что нужно у Warriors, потому что там последняя башня осталась у Jade Dragons. Пенитом, возможно, в одно лицо заберет Фурию ко всему остальному. Нет, к нему еще подтягивается Джейк и Нетройд. Сплит-пуш, так называемый. По миду идут Пеган и Соло. И, соответственно, последнюю башню забирают 3 игрока на дуал-лейне. Теперь борьба на Фениксе будет. Дают своему Титану очень много пространства. Джейд Драгонс Титану улетает, даже не выйдя с базы, грубо говоря. Титану не Warriors дойдет до Феникса прямо, уловом практически. Посмотрим, что там будет на Фениксе, когда он дойдет. Возможно, еще кого-то с собой заберут, потому что они сейчас пушат и по миду, и по левому лайну. Скорее, по левому лайну, конечно, они просто отвлекают. PBM на четверть отвалился. Титан очень медленно, да. Титан подходит к дуал-лейну. И Титан будет пушить дуал-лейн. Warriors пушат соло-лейн 4 в 3. Феникса на соло-лейне нет, но Титан на дуал-лейне тоже сейчас, скорее всего, снесет Феникса. И мид Феникс тоже заканчивается. Очень быстро. Теперь они должны перепрыгнуть на Феникса слева. Нет? Предпочитают не сильно нагнетать, потому что уже минус 2 Феникса есть, им теперь нужно забрать снова ФГ или Фурию, кого-нибудь из этих объектов, которые дадут им очень большой ап без Фениксов.
Netroid, you can't body block those autos. The Boomerang just makes sure to confirm as much damage as possible. So right bird and mid go down. All the while the Titan essentially 1v1s left Phoenix and gets it down to
PBM 4 всего предмета купил. При том, что не играет с фарфлагом, а играет со снежинкой. С тем билдом, который игрался раньше. Не знаю, сейчас более агрессивно играют, потому что хороший ап варфлага для саппортов.
To the halfway point to get where those minions meet. The fire waves will eventually just spoon feed us some extra gold. But stepping in for an FG isn't the call. And actually, I love this play from the Warriors. They said, hey, why not wait for enhanced? Well, the J Dragons aren't going to step up. They're not going to fight us. So let's just see if we can find a pick, sit around some corners at 30 minutes. Then we'll go in for the objective.
To further your point, maybe further the Warriors' dominance. 10 minutes since it was mentioned. 1 kill picked up in that 10 minutes. But for the Warriors, that was all they needed for the Fire Giant. For all of those tier 2s, for another Fury, for a Pyromancer, and 3 towers plus 2 Phoenixes. I mean, it has been
Ласбра один на дуал-лейне проверяет Фурию. Здесь, соответственно, 5 в 4. Какие-то вялые файты. Но сейчас Соло начал файт. Джейк тормозит PBM. Но он опять уходит. Четверть хп потеряно, но он уходит.
They're just playing the game. Are you going to step up? If the answer to that is yes, you got to be careful. But Fire Giant DPS is going to start here for the Warriors. The Dragons got to figure out what they're going to do.
It's only Nika up so far. He's got
Ника идет стилить ФГ. Джейк пропускает его. Ника приходит. Но все равно ФГ за Warriors. Ну и Ника, скорее всего, тоже минус. Нет, спасает PBM Нику. Пеган и Авасом Джейк Ласбру забирают. В итоге Нетроид по нетом забирает вот. PBM забирает... Нетроид забирает PBM. Даблкил. Пеган даблкил. Скорее всего, это все. Ника остался только на защите Титана. И 40 секунд.
It was a lot of let's just sit back, and I think the J Dragons had 2 options there.
1-1.
Let's just sit in our Titan room and see if we can hold out and keep the Titan alive. Or 2, let's fight. Let's go in for the EFG, go in for a possible steal, and just put all of our cards down. Doesn't work out. They were just too far behind, but I like the call, right? Let's just go for the possible 50-50. Nika does his best. He goes in for the knockup, can't find it. So much damage, though. And Sot was zoning, I want to say 3 members of the Dragons by himself, and it was just like full HP on the Yorm. And no one could get past him.
I was a little worried there because he had the runic bomb. He was way, way off in the other direction. Felt like maybe something could go wrong, and that maybe that's the fall of the Warriors in that game. But not only does nothing go wrong, they get the kills afterward, and they continue to.
In the team fight from the Jade Dragons, who seemed more than willing to allow the majority of those neutral objectives to go down with very little presence. And when the Oni Warriors are allowed to have a, I believe, 6, maybe 7,000 gold lead by the time the first team fight had rolled around, I'm thinking the Oni Warriors are going to feel pretty confident in their ability to take that team fight. And that was true of everything. Every neutral objective, every structure, and every semi-permanent structure. Phoenixes went down with a little fanfare as well. The Jade Dragons composition was not projected to do well if it were to fall behind early, and the Oni Warriors found their lead very early on. A lot of that pressure coming out of the duo lane in particular. Thought Jake and Netruid had a very good performance. Rotations from Pagon and Panatom impactful as well. And perhaps the strongest portion of the draft from the Jade Dragons, the ability to jump on those neutral objectives, completely mitigated by the Oni Warriors simply being there first and taking them first. Can't really drop a Circle Protection on a Gold Fury if it isn't there. And the Jade Dragons ran headfirst into that wall a few times. Hard to break down a game like that. It's one-sided. Jade Dragons got blanked.
And SLT on this Jormungandr. I think just the Jormungandr in general might be next, as far as the topic of conversation to go through. Last week we saw it played, I believe, one time, and then we saw it banned a few times against the Eldritch Hounds, and that was about it. That was about all that we saw out of any kind of Yorm last week. This week now, we're 2 games into our best-of-5 set, and both games we have seen a Jormungandr selected in that top 2, which maybe then opens the discussion as just to how potent this Jormungandr is for compositions. Is this a god that you can just pick and then build any kind of composition around, or do you feel that there's something you need to have alongside this Jormungandr to really make him succeed?
I think so long as you have CC coming from someone else on your team, you're probably all right having a Jormungandr, right? Jormungandr being a little bit on the CC light side, it's just that knock-up and that third ability that's going to be consistent for you. Means that you want someone that can start your fight consistently. Susano can do it. The majority of supports can do it as well. What they can't do is match damage output with Jormungandr. I don't know if you saw that 22,000 from SOT, just about doubling the next highest.
So now we'll see where that Jormungandr falls in priority for both of these two teams here in game number 3 as the picks and bans start to roll through. Same bans that we've been seeing, at least over the course of this early day. Set will now join the rankings maybe a little bit earlier in the ban column for the Jade Dragons. So it's kind of an odd one, because you look at least during that game, Pagon behind Dardes for at least the majority of the early to mid game. It really wasn't until about that level 15 mark that we saw Pagon finally get a lead over his opposition there, and most of that warranted just by all the neutral that was being done by the remainder of his team. It really wasn't until about that 4th or so item that this set really came online, but Jade Dragons will ban along with it the Aphrodite to at least round out their top 3 bans. And the Oni Warriors not willing to give up the Jormungandr. After 1 game played on each side, Oni Warriors are going to decide to stop that one here in game 3.
Yeah, no cheat codes for this one. Say the Oni Warriors, Jormungandr 100% win rate on the day. We'll have to take a back seat. With that said, the Jade Dragons do have pick a field of any remaining Soul Laners. Sun Wukong saw some priority in game 2. Could be that the Jade Dragons go back towards it here. Could just say, well, you know, Sun Wukong just outclassed by Jormungandr. Don't have to be too concerned about it. Instead, an ADC lock-in, and one that was at the top of the priority list, has since fallen off. Hachiman replaces him. Ishtar replaces him. Now back. All of a sudden, the CERN, not much has changed with CERN since he was at the top of the priority either. Still has really good poke in lane. Still has a phenomenal team fight ultimate. Good CC output, generally safe. Good scaling to the late game thanks to that first ability, the changing the seasons. So I'm not going to complain about it too much. But it is wildly different to what we've become accustomed to.
Like, did I miss some shadow nerfs that came to Hachiman and Ram or something? Like, those were the top 2 hunters all last week. Cernanos was
and it wasn't close.
Sitting in 3rd place. You know, okay, one of those 2 got banned away. I guess I'll play Cern or maybe like Ishtar or something, but nowhere to be seen for the other 2. It's another game of Izanami for the Oni Warriors and the Cernanos Atlas locked in for the Jade Dragons. And if this Raven gets highlighted and likely locked in, Solo lane Raven has made its comeback. We saw last week what Ducky was able to do on that kind of pick, what a few other teams were experimenting with. Feels like we might be getting the solo assassin back once more.
Yeah, the mitigation that Raven's afforded is just so difficult to deal with. I'd saw multiple team fights, I'm glad you bring up Ducky, where he just goes in at 40% HP, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, you must have ulted the wrong way, right? You didn't mean to jump into the back line sub 50%. He did. All that damage mitigation in the ultimate, the build, how it starts to line out. Raven, very threatening in the current meta. Also does have some flexibility. We've seen from the SEC guys that Raven could very well make his home in the jungle as well. And so the Jade Dragons get to keep the Oni Warriors guessing at least a little bit going into this next phase of bans. I wonder, do the Oni Warriors decide to take some shots towards the jungle? I might still keep my eyes on something like a Daji ban. Or are they going to say, well, no, that Raven is slated for the jungle? Do you start looking towards the solo lane? Otherwise, hard to say. I mean, Raven, just pretty good anywhere you could put him, I'd argue.
So Merlin to round out the Oni Warriors composition. So we jump into the second wave of bans. A Ratatosker ban over towards Lazra. Maybe either trying to force this Raven into the jungle or just saying that maybe unwilling to think that this Raven would be going over in the jungle and so just taking some extra picks away from Lazra at that point. Jade Dragons, though, will ban away Tears.
Так, что у нас там по банам? Ну, все то же самое. Тор, Афродита, Хель, Йормун, Нокс, Дадзи. Все-таки Джейк решил брать Тора.
I don't think so.
Not that I know of.
Someone surely would have told me, a high-res employee, if Guan Yu got nerfed, right? Look, the meta changed. The ebbs and flow of the meta always ever-changing, and the developing meta at the Summer Masters event seems to be straying away from some of those picks that were incredibly prioritized.
Сейчас, скорее всего, будет обратно все.
I imagine Guan Yu is still incredibly strong, though. I mean, defense, shred, initiation, CDR for your allies, healing. He's got it all. He just hasn't got the picks. He hasn't got the favor behind him. As of now, Fenrir to roll out the last of the bans for the Jade Dragons. A shot towards the Oni Warriors and Panatom. Panatom still has a few of his own favorite selections still available. I'm looking at the draft as it stands. I know Panatom is perhaps the most
не Йорма забанили, и Сунюкона себе забрали.
Composition from the Jade Dragons doesn't feel like one that you really want to go towards Susano. We'll get a better idea of it with the last two selected from the Dragons themselves. The Oni Warriors will hold off a bit on their jungler selection and instead field a Sun Wukong for the soul lane. Decent pressure. Didn't get a good look at it last game, but it does have decent pressure. Very good ability to push in those minion waves. Phenomenal rotations. That 72 transformation, just really good at maneuvering the jungle. And also, bar one, the safest soul laner in the game. The one being Jormungandr.
So where will the Jade Dragons go with their
Раванна на соло. Ну это такое.
We'll see if this Raven is going to Lazra or Nika, likely with these last two picks.
Киберспортсмен, видишь, недоволен, что против него Раванна будет на соло, потому что это жесткий персонаж.
Jingwei still up if they want to run the double hunter composition for the Jade Dragons again, though. Again, Jingwei not the only hunter that you would need, but it's the one that they ran at least in game one of this best of 5. A lot of options still available to the Jade Dragons. A lot of things they can do to try to flex this composition around. Seeing Mike back on the Atlas, and that he brought out up against the Camelot King, saw a lot of success on this pick. We're seeing kind of middling success, at least as far as the early portions of the phase were going, but has been on a general upswing, at least as of recent.
Или
And then
Зинвей.
immediately after, so we will see the double hunters from the Dragons, and this Raven going over to Nika and solo.
So another 4 physical composition as well. This time, sole source of magic damage is that Atlas. But Atlas having some defense shred. He does have pretty decent damage as well. I think that you can probably get away with it here on the Jade Dragons. I don't love where the CC comes from on the Jade Dragons, though. You've got the root and the slow from Raven. You've got the polymorph from CERN, but that's not always the easiest to land. And for the most part, Wild Hunt uses a self-peel tool. Pele's got a knock-up. Jingwei's got a knock-up. Neither one of them exactly the easiest
Короче,
connect either.
что они говорят, что ни Мерлин, ни Идзанами не имеют ЦЦ, типа иммунитета. И вот это все Атлас, Пеле, Раванов и Дзинвей, все имеют какой-то контроль сильный. И это будет очень сложный файт.
Там же открыто, что вы там крутите?
Have a little bit of an easier time than what the Jade Dragons have just slotted for themselves, but now rounding out that draft with Erlong Shen. 9 turns blessing plus blink is sort of team fight every single time. I mean, it's a simple equation. I like how this one starts to look now for the Oni Warriors. You've got AoE damage, persistent damage on field from this Merlin as follow-up. Izanami, pretty proficient at just holding her own in that back line. It'll be difficult for the Jade Dragons to chase her down. I like this draft from the Warriors. I wonder what portion of the game the Jade Dragons really put a lot of emphasis on, because it is solo Robin. You tend to think that that's a little bit more late game slanted, whereas traditionally when I think of Robin, especially out of the jungle, it's wow, it's a great early game pick, tends to fall off a little bit. Not exactly the case out of Soul Lane. You need to stack up that defense before you're finding its full value. But Pele is a god that can certainly get things started very early. You haven't got the easiest targets. I think Merlin, for the most part, going to be the recipient of a lot of that aggression. Izanami as well. Post-leap, Volcanic Lightning, just see if you have enough damage to win that DPS race. And if you do, great. Maybe the rest of your team can get something done. If you don't, 1-for-0 trade, and all of a sudden you're fizzled because your frontline dive has just died. So this is a very, very high execution composition from the Jade Dragons. I think a lot of it resides on this Atlas, and a lot of it resides on the Pele. If CERN, Jingwei, and Robin are just role-playing well and doing what is expected of them in role, I think just fine. You're not really expecting them to have breakout performances on those 3 picks. In the team fight, I'm going to be keeping my eyes on just those 2. Lazra and PBM, a lot of weight to carry here for the Dragons.
I think on the flip end here for the Oni Warriors, I'm really looking at this Erlong Shen, because we've seen it 3 times so far. Hasn't gotten a single win just yet. We've also seen 3 different styles of builds picked up for this Erlong Shen, so I'm kind of curious as to maybe where the pathing goes on this Shen. Do we see the full glass cannon style of build that we saw from players like Captain Twig? Do we see maybe a little bit more defense coming out of here like Sam and Kirmi were building? Or do we see maybe a full defense style build, get 1 damage item and jump through there? So I think, at least for this comp of the Oni Warriors, maybe that's where a lot of my attention goes to, what Panatom does with a selection like this. They tied up set in this best of 5. Remember, winner moves on to the finals. The loser still has a 3rd, 4th place to match up to play for the next one down there. But you want to be the one moving forward. The Warriors going to try and keep their upward trend going back here. But can the Dragons slow them down? Let's jump right into game number 3.
That's right. It's been an undefeated year so far for the Warriors. Jelly, to try and keep that on the rails, they are going to try and win this game and at least one more after it. The Dragons still trying to cause a little bit of an upset. Chat's still leaning towards the Warriors. This one a lot heavier than last game. It was 55-45 in game 2, 61-39 from the Twitch poll.
Triple Warriors, Суникон, Эрланшейн и Егор. Просто мета кочевая, защитная.
But as we saw, 3 games played, 0 wins. How do you feel about the God right now?
I really hope that we get to see something from him, because so far, I mean, it's been a lot of CC, some setup, but not that same level of shred that Erlong used to have oh so many moons ago. So I always feel, I mean, at the moment, not good, if I'm honest. I would love to see Panatom just absolutely pop off and show me exactly why so many people are still going towards this pick. I understand some changes occurred, which apparently, allegedly made him much better. But I have not seen the proof so far. So, you know, it's going to be a lot of engage, a lot of lockdown. He still has incredible CC. That's not been the issue. It's just been, are you able to hard carry games away like Erlong used to? And for the past year or so, the answer has been no. But I know a lot of junglers still love this pick because they put so many hours into him back in the day when he had Mannequin Scepter and things like that. So, I do think that ease of engage still is something that Panatom is going to lean towards, and of course that early pressure. Erlong is still going to be able to provide at the pin, just so good CC, being able to pull down the rune, and then the mink form or the turtle form, both.
Получается, что на каждой линии есть хотя бы один воин, ну то есть хотя бы один не сильно мягкий персонаж.
Something that has room to grow, just based on what we've seen.
И по идее они должны будут на себя весь удар принимать, чтобы все остальные могли спокойно дальше отыгрывать.
Also interesting to see the Wukong. You know, we had talked about the Jormungandr, I think, being the overarching pick. But Wukong getting highly prioritized by the Warriors this time around with the Jorm ban. Is that just the way things have kind of shaken out over the last couple of weeks? That Wukong's finally good again?
Seems like it. Seems like these proc items have been very strong, and if you're picking a warrior like Sun Wukong that has a bunch of abilities to proc, then you're going to have a decent time.
Does have a lot.
He's been getting some good pressure in lane, and of course, you're up against Robins. You don't need too much lane clear. Robins never been one to bully out in lane in particular. It's usually once he rotates towards these mages,
Сильно просажен
hunters that don't
PBM.
some itemization. That's when Robin bullies. That's when he is an absolute menace. But as you can see, his wave clear, not the best. Nika's going to be just clearing essentially the melees because he can't even get over towards the archers for now. But, you know, the proc items, the safety, does seem to be the call here. And because of that Yorm, which has been dominating the set, was taken away. Saw one of the next step, which was going to be that Wukong. Excited to see how it plays out because, you know, we haven't seen too much of the actual dive of the Wukong. Like, oh, I blink in, get some good damage off, Somersault Cloud, I land on a carry, they're dead. That used to be the call.
Yeah.
But the build we've been seeing recently is a lot of Metscore spikes, Glad Shield, Bluestone. Just let's get yellow numbers. Let's just be annoying and survivable.
Соло просаживается сильно.
They've got 144 different transformations available to them. Just on 2 gods.
There is a lot of transformation.
PBM ушел с дуалейна помогать на мид сразу же.
Not even 3. 2 that Erlong get are from the same set of 72. It's not like 2 completely different sets of 72. I don't know my lore. That's, I think, really what I'm admitting to right here.
Yeah, I also have no idea how many transformations they actually have access to.
Sounds like me and you've got some raiding to do at some point. Right
Ну
now,
долго,
though,
слышишь,
the
это еще
Warriors
очень
just
достаточно быстро.
playing smidge aggressive. Jake pushing up against the purple buff over on left, making sure that they
Сколько они, 2 раза где-то по 30 минут играли. Ну просто это уже как бы полуфинал, тут уже таких проходных команд нет, которые типа 1 раз выиграли, 2 раз выиграли, все, типа до свидания. Без особых этих упорств. Здесь уже видишь какие-то эти тактикульные все эти вещи.
And then Erlang the same way, and they just say, you know, every like little inch you move your mouse changes to
because your auto attack goes for 55 units. We might have to hold that thought. Lasbra.
Пеган очень сильно просаженный, но успевает пролететь Пенитом, практически отлетел от всех. Джейк прилетает помочь. И отгоняет всех просто, и все.
Yeah, Pagon didn't even have to beads there. A lot of damage came through. Panatom and Lasbra were getting low, but neither was able to go back and actually.
Джей Дрэгонс без магического вообще дамага. Значит, эти, по идее, могут... Эти Warriors смогут просто спокойно все апать в физ деф и все. И почти не будет получать дамага. Единственный минус Warriors это то, что они очень не дальнобойные, очень все милишные. 3 игрока команды милишные.
Which right now, for the Dragons, isn't like a hard loss, but it is definitely a commitment that does not go the way they want to. Pagon might be in a little bit of trouble. There's a lot of people around. Flicker's gonna get him away from some damage. And it should be enough to stop things.
Джейк прессует Дардеса и PBM, помогает ему в этом Пеган. Но Пеган уже без хп. Ласбра, скорее всего, заберет, но и сам умрет. Нет, умер сам. Но не забрал. First Blood для башни. Очень плохой ганг. Но Джейк сзади Пенитом подходит. Дардес и PBM шотные. Не успеет PBM. Ой, не успеет Пенитом прыгнуть на них, но успеет забрать их баф. С мида. Это уже хорошо. Для них.
We talk about this so much, and it usually never comes up because when you go a stacking item, you don't go in for those dives, right? You are stacking that item to get the benefit of evolving it.
Lasbra has so little damage build with this Soul Eater.
If he goes Jotuns or Crusher, yeah, you're gonna kill every day of the week. But with a build like that, I'm amazed that he went for that play. Just did not have the DPS, and Pagon lives to see.
Well, we have a replay of it, and personally,
Это было очень забавно. Это было как-то странно со стороны, конечно, лесника Джей Дрэгонс так напасть. Не то ли на КД он себя поймал, то ли что.
That's my point. Lasmer hit every single ability. He just did not have the damage. That's why I was saying, wow, not because
Попал
there
всеми.
was so much damage coming out. Quite the opposite. A Merlin should die if you hit every single Pele ability on him.
Но они еще не настолько вкачаны, чтобы убить. Нетроид попадает под TBM и вот. Ласбер наконец-то делает первый килл. И хорошо качается, потому что Нетроид был уже 9-го уровня.
Netroid's level 9 to votes 7.
Yep.
And there's not been any action other than a death onto Netroid over there. That has been impressive.
У него хотят размена хотя бы. Всегда пытаются сделать размен. Не просто потерять игрока, а хотя бы 1 в 1.
At least slightly. Gold still in favor of the Warriors. Experience still in favor of the Warriors. Or sub 10 minutes, Trelly. Plenty of room for things to change.
Certainly is. Panatom went in for the attempted gank there.
Соло ждет, пока они сильно отойдут от своей башни и нападает. Но не убивает, конечно, а так чисто. Чисто откусил большой кусок. Пенитом не забрал баф. Дардес пытается что-то противопоставить Пегану и Соло.
Jake tries to go over to purple and take it away from Vote, doesn't get it, so a lot of wins here for the Jade Dragons. Of course, you already highlighted they are behind gold-wise, XP-wise, that sort of thing, but able to take some buffs away and confirm some of their own. Definitely going to be a good look. And it looks like, once again, as you highlighted, Vote has been spending a lot of time here because of this lead that Netroid's been building up for himself.
And I'm gonna be honest, there's been some purple buff invades. It's insane, honestly, to me how well Netroid has controlled
Так,
this.
Пенитом, Джейк и Нетроид. Да что ж такое?
Started up by the Warriors, controlled by the Warriors, and I believe confirmed by the Warriors. But not without a little bit of scrapping
Попало, блин, не могу.
over around the Fury Pit. A little bit of poke, Panatom, everybody showing face. And Charlie, it feels like that's one of those moments where there's we like to talk potential energy, kinetic energy every now and then. That one had very massive potential.
Я в темноте наливал, не знаю.
And then once the buff was gone, fizzled out like it was nothing.
Yep, and because of that, on retreat here. Remember, objectives were such a keen part of game number 1, game number 2, same sort of way. Here in game 3.
Попробуй, может, найти место на этом, на
burn through a pyromancer, diving boat is the call. The CC chain is good, but not enough damage.
Вот уходит еле-еле шотный.
And Netroid should at the very least get a tier 1.
Скорее всего, они сейчас тир 1 собьют башню.
Beautiful play there by the Dragons, or by the
Нет,
Warriors.
очень долго идут. Очень долго боты идут.
Only loses his beats in the process. And his tier 1 tower.
Yeah, tier 1 tower.
Нет, все-таки сбили, не успел PBM задефать.
Strong in this instance. Not strong enough though, Trelly. One more auto. That's all they should have thrown their way. Tier 1 and left is still standing. And it is very binary when it comes to
Вернулся, вот. Нетроид опять на 2 уровня его превосходит. Джейк превосходит PBM на 3 уровня. Но эти все равно пытаются их прессовать, агрессировать, потому что еще Ласбра подходит сзади. Он агрессирует на Нетроида, но второй раз уже так не идет, как первый раз на миду. Потому что, видимо, уже боится того, что вылетит сразу же от башни. Пенитом помогает. 2 в 3. У него Warriors, Jade Dragons. 2 в 3. Джейк прыгает. Джейк очень шотный, но ушел. Но никого и не забрали.
And you know what, Charlie? That's why these guys work so well together.
That's true.
Mechanics on point, saves him. Admittedly, won't have that ult for a little while. Does go for the phalanx in the second item. So maybe a little tankier, maybe a little more survivable. But for another 100 seconds,
Соло,
and while
походу,
that'll
все-таки
still
не поел.
gonna be relaxing, I think, on the side of the Warriors, at least specifically from Panatom.
Пиццу.
I do want to ask you about
Поэтому
that gank we saw earlier from Soft.
не сильно-то
Shows
он
up in mid, goes for Tiger Form.
участвует в файтах
Too slow
каких-то.
to get anything done.
I see what you're setting
Does,
up for.
but, well, I'm really just wondering, does he go back for it? Do you rotate again as the Wukong, thinking that you can do something?
Тем временем
Especially, I
у
guess,
него
around this beacon,
захватывает
which, by
маяк.
the way, spawns in. And this looks like a pretty easy cap from the Warriors. So, beacon aside, let's talk maybe Fury. Can Sot go for like just a standard issue gank?
Well, because of what you said, right? He tried to gank. He was a bit too slow. And so he thought to himself, how do I make sure that everyone else is slow?
Yeah.
So he built Frostbound Hammer. I thought that's what you were setting me up for, and I appreciate it regardless. But it seems like he's just trying to be annoying. That's my guess. Game number 2, he was the Yorm. He ended up building Gem of ISO, just trying to get as many slows as possible. This seems to be the same
Везде втроем ходят Джей Дрэгонс, потому что, видимо, боятся проиграть. О, сейчас Фурию заберут. Явно не успеют. Почему-то они даже и не пытались туда запрыгнуть, видимо, боялись, что как бы кто-то из них оттуда не уйдет, поэтому решили просто отдать ее и все.
That'll be the true testament for where this has been going. But that Gold Fury cuts a chunk out of the lead of the Warriors. Keeps us within shooting range. It's 1-1, 13 minutes in. Still have yet to see a massive
Я эту
breakout.
съел от лами. У меня орехи теперь в горле.
Dardas is nearby. Nika making the rotation in. It looks like it's gonna go down before any Jade Dragons decide to show face, and the runic bomb goes in pocket of Panatom.
Могу тебе, Паш, плюшку только купить, единственное, что.
You said it. No fighting. Objectives, yes, but towards each other.
Но тебе даже если этот, даже если на Твиче будешь смотреть параллельно этот стрим, то как бы уже ничего и не дадут, наверное, потому что тебе надо было предыдущие задания, ну, предыдущие просмотры делать.
Besides that, I mean, the real deficit, the one that we talked about a bit earlier on, it's just been dual lane. It's really just been Netroid on this Iza, pushing in waves a little bit stronger, a little bit better than Vote is able to on this Cernanos. Besides that,
там такой Месилова за тотем и Месилова за щит. Щит забирает у него Warriors.
Maybe the question for a second longer. Luckily, it is exactly the second. You had mentioned some health shred, health steal in some of the mage builds. I think it was in game 1 we were talking about that. E-Staff picked up for the Merlin. You vibing with this, I guess, like in the current line of Merlin as something that is going to be beneficial, especially in a matchup against the Jingwei.
I just really enjoy E-Staff, really in any meta.
Идем в следующий раз пить кофе, буду тебе плюшку покупать.
Just being able to hit your long range poke, Merlin has a ton of, and then just being able to not only steal away that HP from the enemy, but build it up for yourself.
Ты тоже хочешь плюшку?
Really beneficial, exactly. And if you can get the 3 stacks.
Look at his health bar.
Я тебе предлагал? Да, вчера предлагал тебе. Такой, типа, пошли, ты такая, да нет, уже все.
Even, I mean, we saw Lazar die underneath the tower. Try doing that again with how much HP he's got built for himself and stealing it away from your teammates. So I do like the build a lot, especially when, you know, considering how fast we've seen that we're in a self-imposed tank meta. That's what the whispers have been. But I've seen a lot of these tankier targets get shredded through.
Понятия не имею. Сейчас пока 1-1-1.
Dardas and Vote, right? The double ADC comps, things like that.
Ну, 1-1 просто. А должно быть 3-1, 3-2. То есть как минимум еще 2 катки. Это и следующее. Ласбро убегает на деках. Каждый раз приходится ульту прожимать кому-то из 2 команд, чтобы уйти невредимым.
Controlling ever so slightly the Warriors, and with no other neutral objectives available, you're not losing out on a lot of space on the map.
Паша говорит, хочу что-то прям ледяного. Думаешь?
you're just not able to.
Я думаю,
So the
нет, он
Oni
не
Warriors
согласится.
step with the Oni Fury. They start
К
to get some
сожалению.
aggressive ward coverage. They get their vision. They step forward looking at Mike. And they're just pushing forward as a unit, making sure that no one can get in close. Seems like the Fury is going to be pulled immediately off spawn. Question is, does Nika try and teleport in? The answer is yes. He goes right to mid tower. So the Jade Dragons know exactly what's going on.
Так,
They're
у
gonna
него
step up
Warriors
and fight as
опять
well.
группапаются на Фурию и ждут реакции.
Wow.
Rope up.
Impressively enough, that's all it takes for the
That's
Warriors
it.
to fall back. The appearance of a
Они зашли и сразу ушли.
towards that.
He is scary.
The Stygian Beacon's
Мне
gonna be
кажется, и
flowing
те
into that
не
as
хотят
well, so maybe
особо
give us a
сейчас
split
еще
objective opportunity.
участвовать в каких-то тимфайтах, потому что понимают, что как бы
Which do you
шаг
go
лево,
for?
шаг
In
вправо.
this instance, it's easier, it feels like, to cap the Beacon than it is to go for the Oni Fury. But
А мы
no
сильно
matter
жрали
what you
морожку,
do, I feel like
кстати.
either team's gonna
Наташа
step
с
up and fight.
работы шла,
Yeah,
купила.
you don't want to give either of them up. If you're the Oni Warriors, with the lead they have, you definitely are just going in for the Fury. If they get the Beacon, unfortunate, but you can probably just send like 2 members of your team over, like Sot, to stall while you grab the Fury and then walk over, and that does seem to be the call. It
Снова
was Jake and
попытки
Netroid going for the
какие-то
pull, all the while Sot
Фурию
sat near the Beacon.
снять, но это
Next on the
скорее
Beacon
байт
is
на
one
то,
of the
чтобы
scarier targets on the map with this
враг
build.
подошел.
3
Соло и
four
Джейк
full items, whereas Sot only has
стоят
3.
на
This Robin is
маяке
extremely
еще
tanky, still
чуть-чуть
able to do some good damage to
до того, как
carries.
он перезагрузится.
It's not going to be easy to try and zone a Robin with Blink off the
Скорее всего, здесь
backline.
будет следующий
That's why he's
файт.
just gonna stand here on the beacon and make sure it doesn't capture
Трое
it. Here
заходят.
comes Mike and Darcy, they
Двое
wanna put
Oni
their-
Warriors и
they're
трое
actually
Jade
tapping
Dragons
Blink
заходят
towards this
на
objective to
маяк.
make sure
Неtroid
their
стоит
favor.
сзади,
It looks like Sot and Jake don't feel too
но
much pressure
почему-то
just
никто
yet.
сильно не пытается его захватывать. Захватывают все-таки Jade Dragons, скорее всего. Осталось совсем чуть-чуть, если кто-то не зайдет, то да. Но сразу же влетают в файт Oni Warriors. Джейк сейчас закончится. Нет, это соло. PBM почти умер, но все разошлись, опять без киллов.
All that did was open up an Oni Fury. Question mark for the Dragons. They're not going to step forward to it. Teleport in.
Все уже почти до 20-го докачались и 1-1 еще. Слишком аккуратная игра.
Is the call. And this is what I was talking about, though. We saw the blink in from Panatom. The damage just was not there. This Erlong Shen is not melting targets as you would expect. Mike gets low, but because of a great wild hunt from Vote, there really was no follow-up. And of course, we saw how low SOT was able to get jumping onto the somersault cloud. Just did not have that survivability. So this Erlong is just a CC bot, hoping that Netroid and Pagon are able to clean up some of these kills off of the Blink 9 turns blessing, off of the pins, things like that. Only 3 items online. Maybe the shred just gets, stronger as the game continues, but
Да.
this is stalled out so much that Pyromancer is being looked at here, and Jake gets pulled back in.
Джейка
No one dashed to.
затягивают,
SOT helps him out, but still very
но
low
он
on this
уходит на
horse
пол
already.
хпшки.
The objectives have to be
И опять
pulled.
4 человека каждой команды на миду, и особо каких-то действий агрессивных не происходит. Все пытаются выверенно как-то это все сделать. Конкретную секунду высчитать, чтобы это сделать более выгодно для себя, наверное, так.
That's going to be some of the danger. I mean, we had talked about the build. Was the last game, or maybe it was 2 games ago from Jake? It was on the Sobek in game 1. Had a lot of health, very little prots. This time he's leaning a little heavier into the prots to help him out. But Trelly, the sovereignty and then a tier 2 breastplate, not keeping him alive as long as maybe he'd like.
No, I mean you're hoping that the Bewitch dagger kind of carries the majority of that weight. The attack speed slow for this. I was gonna say double, but throw Lasbra in there, and Nika's even to throw some autos its way. So a lot of auto attack heavy composition. You're right.
Джейк и Ласбра пытаются, ну тут без вариантов, конечно, было для Джейка, потому что у Ласбра явно больше дамага, чем у него. Поэтому щит он забрал.
What a stalled out game. It was early aggression from the Warriors, and then just a halt in that aggression off of an early
Когда это у него Warriors успели пироманта одного забрать, я что-то пропустил.
Baiting the line, I suppose, just seeing what you can try and find. And there has not been much found. Still sitting 1-1, 20 minutes in. What was it? 3 kills at 20 minutes, game 1.
Yep, 3 kills at 20 minutes, game 2.
Now only 2. We're down.
We're regressing. They've actually got less kills with more fights this game than what we've seen. Last couple have been nothing but dominance. Now
Заходят они на башню первого порядка. Скорее всего, башня закончится, да. Минус вторая башня. И сейчас, скорее всего, они либо пойдут снова пироманта бить. Пытаются бить Ласбра, может его украсть, но нет, он ничего такого не делает. Соло байтит на файт. Джейк влетает помогать, но все расходятся опять же. Пол хп потрачено, но обратно все отходят и не получает фолл урона. Бегут Джей Дрэгон забирать Фурию, потому что не успеет, скорее всего, Warriors просто что-то сделать. Джейку приходит, всех пугает, разгоняет. Минус PBM, соло, первый килл за 2 игры. Теперь охотятся на Нику. Ника убегает. Кто-нибудь из них сейчас явно его догонит и застанет. Да, догоняет Пенни Том. Ника минус, не троит килл. Башня второго порядка свалится, или они больше будут убивать кого-то? Соло Ортроль прям под Фениксом это все делает. Скорее всего, он сейчас закончится. Минус 2 башни на миду. Я забываю, что у Сунюкуна ульта делает второго Сунюкуна. Он ультанул, и ульта побежала под Феникса. Фурия первая за Warriors. Это Они Фурия. Значит, она будет давать чуть-чуть больше урона по ботам. И в лесу, и везде.
Opportunity for the Warriors to group up and head towards this fire giant, right? I mean, someone's gonna have to deal with the wave, and it seems like Vote is just setting up camp over on left lane for now, and that's the place. Netroid's heading over to right. Fire giant is definitely going to be looked at here. You got to start thinking about burst potential and confirmation. I don't see anything too easy. Dark portal from Netroid will be decent.
Джейк снова отстанет Дардеза. PBM пытается помочь, но тут 3 в 2 было, и все, это закончится, скорее всего, 2 киллами. Минус 2. Ласбра пытался вовлечься в это все, но ничего не сделал. Скорее всего, ФГ за Они Warriors, потому что 3 в 5. Вряд ли они туда пойдут. Ника мог бы сейчас за это время попробовать снести башню, но предпочел регрупнуться на базу. Последний стигийский маяк, скорее всего, забирает Они Warriors, потому что здесь даже не видно никого из Джей Дрэгонс. И по какому-то из лайнов пойдут Титаны. Тем временем на соло-линии они убили последнюю башню без особых каких-то вообще сопротивлений.
Unfortunately for them, Titans gonna spawn in. Titans gonna be running
Титаны пойдут на соло.
this time around.
Там уже все снесено, поэтому особо никаких не будет вариантов помощи от Титана.
I feel like it's because of the Merlin that we don't have to worry about his damage numbers. Or about the fact that his build, like, you know, he's gone for a little bit extra in terms of damage items, but he's sitting third from the bottom.
Если еще один пиромант за Они Warriors, судя по всему, да.
But it feels like he's been just a setup machine, and when Pagon's doing as much damage as Pagon is doing, or Netroid as well, I don't know that I care. That
Титаны пошли.
Титаны
пошли по соло-линии.
Can't get much better than that. Of course, Erlong farms the map a bit better, but that's what I'm talking about. Protector of the
Kumba? No.
Protector of the jungle, Phalanx, Midgardian male.
Все Джей Дрэгонс перегруппировываются, потому что по дуалинии последняя башня ушла, и Феникс. Сейчас начнется атака на Феникса, и только Мерлин в роли Пегана идет, наверное, на Титана, чтобы ему помочь. Хотя или всем плевать на Титана.
I can see the HP
Yeah,
bar
no,
dropping,
they are
so
actually
yes.
fighting. Yes, the answer is yes to that. And we'll see, I guess, who gets the advantage. I believe it was a 2-1 split in favor of the Warriors in terms of the beacons. First and third going their way, second one going towards the Dragons. That also matters coming into this siege because you get a little bit of extra damage. Looks like the Titans are going to go down about the same time. And that's going to be the engage on left.
Минус PBM. Тем временем прям под Фениксом. Четвером они заходят, убирают Феникса и, скорее всего, сейчас заберут Нику. Нет. Ласбра шотный. Пойдут ли они за ним? Не факт. Феникс на миду закончился. Абсолютно все почистили. Все объекты почищены. Но и они очень шотные, они сейчас могут просто закончить это все. Оставляют это на Титана, который может пойти и пронести им всю линию тоже.
They just leave him behind to die, and I didn't love the siege there, or as the defense rather, from the J Dragons. Once again, Mike sieges forward, and it seemed to me the J Dragons made a call. Hey, we're going to defend this Phoenix. Let's step forward. Mike does so, but there was no follow-up. The dive wasn't there. Nika actually ends up using that ultimate defensively to back up instead of going in. So, was the call to defend or not, right? If you're going to step up that forward, Atlas doesn't have too much get in, get out potential. He is either I am ready, I'm dropping my ultimate, we're going in, or I'm kinetic charging out. And it looks like Phantom's got a great opportunity to try and kill both here with the ult from Awesome Jake, just to confirm the kill. Remember, there's no birds up, another pick here.
Джейк ультит, чтобы перекинуть всех и убить одного игрока Джей Дрэгонс, это был АДК. Ну, в принципе, ни одного нет уже Феникса, и, скорее всего, 5 в 4 это будет фиаско, конечно же, для Джей Дрэгонс. Сейчас еще боты будут подходить и потихоньку надамаживать. Ласбро убивает Нитроида, Пенитом убивает Ласбро. EBM минус, да. Но очень все шотные, все очень шотные. Соло прям.
Yeah, seems like a fight that wanted to happen but didn't need to happen. The Oni Warriors step up, try and see what they can find. And they find some picks, but they also lose their ADC's life, which means Enhanced Fire Giant's not going to be done anytime soon. And of course, you're not going to go in for the actual end call there. So props to the J Dragons for at least shutting down the first advantage.
Не знаю, какой сейчас у J Dragons, конечно, будет вариант, чтобы перевернуть эту игру обратно, но...
Remember last game in this instance, the J Dragons siege forward, they fight at the Fire Giant. They say, we're putting all of our tables down. It's 3 waves of fire minions. Even if you are going to fight, it's at best a 4v5 and you're letting a wave.
Снова они забирают пироманта без особых каких-то проблем и без сопротивления. Будут забирать еще ПГ.
Set up an ambush somewhere. They're not fighting in the Titan room. Their Titan is simply too weak to take a scrap near their fountain. And with the ultimate from Horus available, they gotta also be looking for the skies.
You gotta be careful here if you're Nika. You had mentioned it earlier. Relatively tanky.
Ника хорошо обороняется. EBM пытается надамажить Пегана, но Пеган, естественно, передамаживает его. Соло опять шотный. Спасибо.
Драконы не смогли.
Да, драконы точно не смогли.
do nothing as they control it with the CC and with fire minions running into the base Trelly. That just wins them the game. The full-on deicide, and now on set point for the Warriors.
It was a
Спасибо.
win-win
Паша
regardless,
10 рублей
even
закинул.
if Awesome Jake doesn't keep Panatama alive there. There's no way Lazarus was
Особенно
putting out all of those fire
от
minions, and of
Наташи,
course he
спасибо.
wasn't able to kill the
Все,
Horus.
зарплата
That's what I'm
пришла.
talking about, though. They had an option. Do we go in for the fight? This time it ends up pretty well. I mean, Lasper gets a triple, close to a quadra if that ultimate from Awesome Jake doesn't come through. But the Oni Warriors had a very easy line to victory, and it was the Titans half HP, and there's 3 waves of fire minions pushing forward. It just seemed like the Jade Dragons weren't able to draw that line in the sand. They weren't able to stop that gold lead from piling up, and by the time they found a fight, just a little bit too late.
Put themselves in a position to win the set, or at least win the game. Now are in a position to try and win the set. It's 2-1 for the Warriors.
Рекламу немножко.
Be sure to pick up some brew. Our good friends over at Advanced GG have now brought us not only a new flavor, but also a new Baron's Brew Shaker. So make sure that you pick up both of those over at advanced.gg. Both of those on sale now if you put
Что такое Baron's Brew? Baron's Brew это же что-то пиво какое-то типа крафтовое. Брюери это пивоварня, я знаю, а Brew это что-то типа того. Солод, наверное.
Thank you so much for Advanced GG for joining us in year 10 of Smite in season 10 of the Smite Pro League. Here in game number 3 of this set, though, Mifflin, a little bit closer to start things out. Probably one of our closest early games that we've seen between these two teams. But early game damage woes coming from the Dragons, not able to finish off some of those kills. And more than anything, just the neutral farm of the Oni Warriors carrying them through the early game and then carrying its way in towards the late game.
Yeah, there was also a bit of an unfortunate stumble from Lazra on that first tower dive attempt, jumping into the tower at level 5. Maybe not the most recommended place
Да,
to be,
я
especially
видел.
considering
Только ты
he's on
кидаешь на
slow
этот,
build
ну
of
ладно.
Soul Eater
В
in
принципе,
first
пофиг.
slot tends to slow down your burst potential, and we'll get a pretty good look at it immediately. Pagon.
Да, но это был, наверное, главный момент матча. Просто после этого, судя по всему, Ласбро уже не стильно агрессивничал и все, и начал проигрывать. Как раз из-за этого.
And I think it comes down to a lot of what we had said in the initial P's and B's, which is this is a Jade's Dragon composition that was really going to struggle on initiation. When they needed to be the aggressor, when they needed to get the fight started on their own, it was almost entirely up to PBM. Is he landing a pull? If yes, you
Да,
landed
это,
one pull.
грубо
Right?
говоря,
Maybe
отражение
you pick,
первой
maybe
катки
you don't. But if he
абсолютно...
doesn't, who else is
Да
going
ладно,
to
забей,
succeed?
может,
Does it
туда.
have to be Nika with a single man
Лучше,
agreement,
конечно,
or
на
is
этот
it going to be Lazra
The
with a
National
knock every
Alerts.
single time? I think a
Вроде
little
с
bit too much
него
weight to put
проще
onto those
вытащить, чем оттуда,
frontliners,
но я не уверен.
and not enough CC to go around on the Jade Dragons. So
Так что, в
the Oni
принципе,
Warriors
это
given a
особо
little
не
bit of
без
leeway
разницы.
in when they started the fights and how they were able to counter engage the fights. Went out on the majority of the late game engagements. Any 5-on-5 that came their way just felt like the Oni Warriors had a much easier time finding their kills.
В первой катке Джейк не смог на Собике, в этой катке не смог этот PBM абсолютно на Атласе ничего не показал.
All three Phoenixes were knocked down. The Titans had already collided at that point, and the Titans had like 25% HP and the minions walk in. So a little too late for kind of that final pushback there by the Jade Dragons, but able to still at least hold out for a little bit. Those first 20, 22 minutes of the game, still very even as far as the goal was concerned, maybe about 3,000-4,000 at the most that anywhere get through. But it felt like every time the Dragons were winning out in small skirmishes, not necessarily getting the kills, it was just, hey, we push them back to base, hey, we're able to invade this buff, that
Але
buff.
забей.
They were always
Кидай,
still
кидай,
down in that
если
XP,
хочешь.
down in gold. And probably the most noticeable difference in that XP department was over in the duo lane. I mean, it was a level 7 vote to level 9 on Netroid at one point, and there had been no fighting in the duo lane. It wasn't like a tier 1 tower was gone. It was an even lane, but Netroid just had such a clear XP advantage.
Yeah, dual lane's been doing very well so far today throughout. Just a good deal of pressure from the Oni Warriors dual lane. And generally, you could just say a good deal of pressure from the Oni Warriors, and that'd be a blanket statement on its own. Everywhere we've been playing through pressure. It feels like they've adapted their playstyle a bit to emphasize individual lanes, and today has been the duo. They've really been locking things down, transitioning in towards those neutral objectives, rotating for control points, or even just oracles. I saw a couple of rotations from Netroid towards those. Just giving them the numbers advantage in all these early game fights tends to work out.
Well, let's see what does get shifted up here and what adaptations are made for game number 3. Or sorry, game number 4 of the best of 5. It would be potential game 3 win now for the Oni Warriors. They can seal this one out. They win out the set and they move on to the grand finals and then wait for the winner between the Hounds and the Ferrymen that will play a little bit later on today. Jade Dragons, they need a win here and a win in game 5 if they want to be the team.
Димон подключил ботов.
I was starting to wonder for a moment here, Myth. Do you ban out maybe a little bit more focus in the duel lane? This Izanami Horus 2 games in a row has worked really well for the Oni Warriors. Now with them moving into first pick, chances for the Dragons to take away maybe one of those options there. Do you think that might be a call for the Dragons to try and slow down that duo momentum?
Maybe, but if I were to ban out anybody, it likely would just be the Horus.
Это же самое.
Izanami is incredibly high pressure, but there are other options that could put out similar pressure. Rom still comes to mind, even if it isn't coming to the mind of the pros themselves.
Они,
I remember
видимо,
last week and how dominant that pick
просто
was. So
вычислили, кто на ком лучше играет, легче, и
won't
тех
affect
и
them too
банят.
much. The Jade Dragons, though,
Уже
seem to think
второй
as
или
well.
третий
Izanami will be the third
матч
ban for them
баны
overall.
чисто
Start
про то,
taken
что
away from the by the
кто
Oni
играет
Warriors.
лучше
They
на
third
каком
slot. And everybody forgets what
персонаже.
happened in the first 2 games of this set. Jormungandr, 100% win rate so far here today. Has been putting out immense damage, feels unkillable in the laning phase. Itemization, still tanky, but also threatening to the backline. A god that has quickly risen through the charts.
Now option goes back to the Jade Dragons. I kind of wanted just to pull
Ага.
just to make sure I wasn't mistaking in this, but a single game that Netroid has not won on the Izanami out of now 9 games that he has played this pick.
That's pretty good.
So sitting upwards of nearly a 90% win rate on that selection during the regular season and 8.6 KDA on it as well for the 7 games that he did play it then. So definitely his most comfortable and one of his most winning picks here in Season 10. With that Jormungandr for the Warriors, that opens up the Horus. So now you've banned the Izanami and taken the Horus away from Jake. So you've effectively nullified what has been working for the dual lane of the Oni Warriors. But with this Marty pickup here, we have so far today only seen this Marty as the lone hunter in compositions. I wonder if the Jade Dragons mix that up here in Game 4 and add a second hunter to the mix.
Potential to do so, but I feel like Jormungandr's got a pretty decent matchup into hunters. The ability to sneak up, knock him up into the air, have the rest of your team jump onto him, or potentially just go for your burst and immediately into the World Serpent. Very threatening. And then the reset potential of World Serpent, either back to base or teleport back in afterward or continue your onslaught if you hadn't taken too much damage, might dissuade the Jade Dragons from going towards another hunter pick here. But even if they do, you also have the option to just double kin size build and really start to deal with some of these larger bodies that the Oni Warriors likely will be drafting. So yes, can do it. Will they do it? Maybe not. That seems to be the case with Marty here today. Regardless, it still is a high-pressure pick and a high-pressure dual lane potentially for the Jade Dragons if Marty isn't slated for mid. Really fast, wave clear, should have decent control on neutral as well. That buff on the left-hand side, the shield buff, likely will go over to the Jade Dragons. I can't imagine a lane from the Oni Warriors that would be able to match pressure immediately. Rom Aphrodite makes a good argument for it, but Aphrodite takes a few levels before she is able to clear out those waves. But Rom, a pick that we had been calling for all day, J-Mac, you and I. Where's the Rom? What's going on? What happened to him? This is what happened. It's taken a few bans and a few pick-aways, but finally, the Oni Warriors decided to take the Rom mantle.
So now we only wonder where the Hachiman is. That's the only other one we're questioning is where did he disappear to? Maybe we'll see him.
Where's my Guan Yu at?
You know, where's Guan? Where's Hachi? Where's Terra?
What happened to Terra?
So many picks, man. Week number 2 is a feels
Максимальный
almost like a complete
разрыв
from week 1 of Masters.
пердаков
Aphrodite comes back into Jake's hands this time.
летучий.
Similar to
Да уж.
Metroid's stat line for
Спасибо.
the Izanami. 7 games played in the regular season, 6 of those being wins for Jake, one of the only players in the league who is finding majority success on this pick. We saw some mixed from some of the other supports, or for a few supports, complete losses.
Ты, кстати, знал, что Дракула это по-румынски дракон тоже?
What the Afro Rom lane can do for the Oni Warriors up against potentially the Horus and Martikaros. But then Cucullin now for the Jade Dragons. Adds a little bit of anti-heal in the kit with that first ability. Gives you a decent bit of area control as well, and some nice CC once you're in that rage form too.
And one of the most valuable forms of CC at that. The knock-up and base stance, I think, going to be very important for the Jade Dragons. Aphrodite is very good at maintaining her carry's relics. Undying Love is Beads and Aegis built into one, but just like Beads, has a weakness. If you're already in the air, it's not going to deliver you back to the ground. So knock-ups from either Horus or Cucullin might be able to find their value regardless, even with Undying Love on the table here for the Oni Warriors. Hebo by the Jade Dragons taken away. The Oni Warriors, eyes towards the Ratatasker. Lazarus has a phenomenal performance on that one. A little bit earlier. I believe it was 7-1, topping the damage charts as well. So get him off of one of his favorites. But there still are a few priority jungle picks available. Daji comes to mind, but will the Jade Dragons be willing to take Daji into an Aphrodite? Feels a little bit miserable. It's not like the Hell match.
Если они отдали Джеку Афродиту или Нокс или Хель, то это очень странно.
With both teams needing a jungle, both teams going to be taking shots at each other. Hebo and Bakasura, Ratatasker. Shots at both the Oni Warriors and the Jade Dragons. Mutually assured destruction. We're going down the tier list.
Yeah, it kind of feels though maybe with that Hebo Bakasura.
Там Летов уже новую песню написал, видел?
Usually the answer is one of those two picks, sometimes both, if your team is fortunate enough to be able to grab them. And I wouldn't put it past the Oni Warriors to have drafted both those compositions to give Jake an easy time. I'll figure out who to link to. Jade Dragons, there's the Hachiman and the Rom, so we've reverted back now to week number 1's Hunters, but
and they're so much worse now.
I know, it's just, it feels like they've stepped down an entire maybe 2 tiers in the tier list at this point by going back, but we will see the Rom and Hachiman that was so prevalent last week now rear its head here in game number 4 of this best of 5. So what does that leave now for the Oni Warriors? Pagon, Panatom still need their selections. With so much that's been kind of just banned away. Pagon losing out on the Hebo, losing out on the Set, but still plenty of mage options to go back to, and maybe even some other options as well.
Assassin options as well. It's been a while, but we've seen a whole lot of physical mid from Pagon. You've already got a double match lineup on the Oni Warriors. You could take a Hunter here towards mid, and I wouldn't be surprised from the Warriors. Could also go towards something maybe like Susano. That Pele could be for mid too. A double assassin composition when you've got an Aphrodite, turning one of those assassins essentially into an off tank, means that your dive potential is going to be through the roof. Between Pele and Susano, I think I'd prefer to see the Pele in mid. Her dive potential a little bit easier to execute on, wave clear, a little bit more consistent. And Panatom is just kind of the Susano guy.
Man, they make our job so hard with that, though. Because you think
Душнилово, капец какое дома, блин. Вообще воздух не вращается.
It's not like because it's not like Pagon jumped into jungle and played the Susano. He was running that mid against some of the other pro teams out there, but Pele mid, at least the option that you're leaning towards for the Oni Warriors. And now Erlong Shen, drafted last game, found its first win out of the 4 that's been played through, and now will make its home over onto the Jade Dragons. Another composition that we see here with Triple Warrior popping its way through here. It's all physical for the Jade Dragons. How does that
Они опять без всего маг урона, только физ урон.
I'm thinking some defense probably gets built here by the Oni Warriors. I wouldn't hate seeing Rom have like a Berserker shield or something like that. Just 5 fizz draft, you've at least got a little bit of defense shred on your team between Horus and Marty. So maybe it could work out. Man, the pros, when they decide
Jade Dragons играет типа в то же, во что играли Oni Warriors, 3 воина. Но тем временем, как бы Мантикора и Хачиман, все это, все физ урон. Маг, деф можно не это. А мы все хотели купить, и что-то как-то не добрались до этого.
feels like could have just had a magical jungle or something like that to turn things around. That Erlong Shen could have just been an Aokwang, you know, or something to at least make the Oni Warriors think a bit harder as to what they would like to play or what their build should be. I've got confirmation here from production backstage, so it is Susano for the jungle and Pele for mid here for the Oni Warriors. Hachiman mid for the Jade Dragons, just completely going against the grain. Generally, when we do see double hunter compositions that include Marty, Marty has traditionally been that mid laner, just for his ability to push out those waves so easily, remain safe, and doesn't necessarily need to concern himself with ganks. The ability to banish yourself, remove yourself from the playfield with death from above, so valuable when the jungler is hovering your lane often, but instead, Hachiman still is very safe, so should be able to displace himself relatively easily. I wonder, I say all that waffling to try and figure out where the Jade Dragons' power points lie.
Right.
Is it going to be a late game composition? Double Hunter tends to lean itself towards that, right? 2 6-slotted Hunters, it's a lot of DPS, but when you're thinking about how much defense the Oni Warriors can build, it almost makes me feel like the Jade Dragons are on a timer, right? Can they leverage Double Hunter towards objectives in the early? If yes, maybe you build enough of a lead that your 5 Fizz composition won't come back and bite you.
Я думаю, они уже поняли, как это все билдить, чтобы против абсолютно всех физ-уронов нормально сыграть. Не знаю, это же как бы в этом и смысл, чтобы кто-то был с маг-уроном, другой с физ-уроном, чтобы был баланс какой-то, а так просто все в одну сторону идет и все.
Not just remain undefeated, but potentially set even further a record, Trelly. It's what the Warriors could continue to try to do here. It's Gore.
Или им сложнее будет билдить, потому что там и маг урон, и физ урон, а у этих только физ. Ну странно, короче. Ладно. Может, конечно, это все и поможет.
Dragons, I mean, Myth says they're doing something different. He prefers the Warriors. I just want to know, is it good different, bad different? Is this the kind of different that breaks the mold and gets us to a game 5?
It's a rough different, for sure. Yeah. Because let's be clear, trying to, you know, take on the Oni Warriors at any moment like with their current streak and everything they've been able to do so far with this team is going to be difficult. Now you set you up with a 5 physical draft. Of course, they do have built-in prot shred. That will be a bit of it. That won't be the issue, right? They've got the prot shred. It's just you get so much value out of double dipping into these different you know, aura items. We've seen time and time again the Oni Warriors facing this double hunter composition go into the mid guard. They get horrific. They get the Bewitched Dagger. They have so many different options for slowing the attack speed. But it seems like the Jade Dragons are showing their hand pretty early, right? They're like, hey, we practiced double hunter objective shred compositions. I am going to be going. That's it, right? Let's just stick to what we know. Whether it's double fizz or not does not seem to matter. Actually, Lasper was setting up for a possible cringe gank over on SOT at level 2, but he spotted it out and decided to stay back. Smart call. Yorm does not have beads, so a pin from the Erlong could have been disastrous, especially when Nika transformed right there at level 2. So smart call. Just to stay back and say, hey, maybe if we don't see Lasper in mid lane, I should stay pretty far safe over on the right side of the map.
Well, he still has ult, right? And then all of a sudden, it's maybe a different conversation of safety once again. Back into the fray. Feels good to be a Jormungandr. Panatom, Pagon, back on the assassin duo in mid. Feels like it is just going to be potentially devastating. We saw last time. Transcendence is online, things like that. Stacking items that took a little bit of time. Based on what I'm seeing up at the very front, at least for Pagon, maybe not changing too much in that regard. And then Trelly, a pick that we have picked on a lot. Pretty much whenever it's played by anyone that's not Jake, but played by Jake this time. And so maybe less picked on. The Aphrodite joining the Warriors, something that has been losing a ton of games.
Или там спокойно забирает щит. И BM, скорее всего, сейчас отвалится просто потому, что 3 в 1. Нет, успевает. Сот почему-то отваливается. First blood.
Yep, unfortunately, I said no beats on the Yorm. Dardes with plenty of HP to try and live this one, it would seem, unless they
Дардес
dive
тоже
tower,
получает
which
на пол
we
хп,
learned
но
last
не
game,
умирает,
Pele dive in
в
tower
отличие
early
от
on, probably
Соло.
not the best call. So at the very least, you pull the beads off of Dardes, but he lives to see another day. And that was double blink used, by the way. On the wall, scrapping happening all over. Awesome Jake has to sprint away from the frenzy pop. Literally fighting in every single lane. I mean, Sot didn't really fight back. That was more of just a, you know, you just have to die. But fighting in mid and over on the left side of the map. I was just about to ask you, are we going to 20 minutes again with only 2 kills?
Yeah, we were talking about that coming into the room.
Does not seem like we're set up for that sort of game.
It's the earliest first blood we've got this set so far. Every other one has been around the 7, 8, I think even last game was 9-minute mark. It took a while to get there. Even the last game we had a lot of fighting. And so the Dragons able to at least get us on the board a little faster. Petrelli, I don't know if we can sit back and be happy about it just yet.
Nope.
Till we see 4 kills before 20 minutes. Things are going to be maybe still a little shaky, of course, how aggressive they get. And it's around that level 5 mark we were saying that things might get, I mean, difficult anyway. All of a sudden you're going to have, when they hit it over in duo lane, the Undying Love, which suddenly gives all sorts of protection, I mean, straight up immunity that you're going to be able to survive with. Yorm already level 5, now going to have a lot of CC immunity to disengage. Pele might just try to kill you faster than you can kill her. So definitely a window maybe shutting for the Dragons. Maybe opportunities rising for the Warriors. But first blood goes their way no matter what. This is maybe the closest lead. We're 4 minutes in, so that's definitely jumping the gun. But at least from what we've seen over the last few games, we've got to 1,000, 1,200 gold leads without the first blood. Now even with first bloods, a few hundred gold separating them. Not too much aggression from the Dragons after that successful gank.
And that's what I'm expecting, because
Но я уже покушал.
Lasbra is the kind of jungler that plays through momentum very well. He gets an early first blood on this Erlong Shen, and he wants to continue that, right? He wants a second kill as quickly as possible. There is, I was going to say very little beads. There is essentially no beads. It's just Netroid that is going to have that CC immunity. Lasbra was fearing the Volcanic Lightning and actually used the 9 turns.
Непонятно, чего они ожидают, когда
Pagon goes in, but decided against it. Pagon just wants to stack up Soul Eater. He doesn't want
они
to go
берут
in for
всех
that fight.
физ-дамагов. Ну,
We might learn something about
скорее
Pika's
всего.
survivability, but unfortunately,
Это, конечно же, заранее понятно, что будут выигрывать Oni Warriors, но, может быть, есть какой-то скрытый смысл в этом всем.
They have too much CC otherwise. If it's not a knockup, not too much to worry about. Dardes does have the ultimate though.
Пеган и Пенитом почти убивают Дардеса. Нет, все-таки убивает с ульты. Пеган, скорее всего, отвалится. Нет, Афра его отхилила. И минус Ласбра. 2 в 0. Вовремя Джейк подлетел и подхилил. BM стоит на миду и просто не понимает, что делать.
9 times out of 10, the Afro has to hit a clutch kiss into Undying Love, and it's going to miss one of those abilities, right? It's just not going to happen. But lands the kiss onto Pagon, gets the immunity, then heals him up through the fight. There was just no anti-heal on the side of the Jade Dragons. Lasbra, 1 auto. Would have done it.
Yep.
Could not find it, unfortunately. And that means Pele lives to see another day. And I cannot believe that Dardes ends up falling down there. He had the mounted archery.
Все, Джейк закупил уже броню нужную. И все. Считай, что это будет аура, физ, дефа. И все. И никто из них вообще никакого урона не будет наносить практически.
It will continue, and I think both teams want to fight. This is the Oni Warriors' aggression, no doubt, but Lasbra was there. Lasbra was game, right? He stepped forward. He was looking for the scrap. It's not like the Jade Dragons are just rolling over.
The question, I guess, is really, I mean, especially now that Soul Eater's finished, Pagon looks like he's going somewhat hybrid, right? Standard for a mage, or at least a mid laner, which is damage item into prot item into presumably more damage afterward. But looks like gearing up for the potential to jump in, kill off a lot of people, and be present. And the other thing, you know, we've kind of touched on it.
Нику опять прессуют вдвоем. Пенитом и Соло. Не уверен, что они его доберут, но вкусили достаточно большой кусок. Пенитом, ой, то есть Пеган против Ласбра и Дардеза. Около мидового бафа.
So is Jake. Doesn't seem like the dive on the tier 1 is going to happen. So they'll put a little pause to that.
Джейк помогает Пегану. И они вдвоем Дардеза практически забили. Скорее всего, Ника здесь сейчас закончится, но закончится ли кто-то из Warriors? Да. Нет. У-ху-ху-ху-ху. Просто на тоненького. Джейк получает очень много урона. Пеган успевает свалить, но Ласбра, скорее всего, сейчас Джейка догонит и тоже сбреет. Нет, не успел.
And then the other physical protection items that the Warriors are going to be picking up throughout all of this. It just benefits everything that they're going to be sieging into.
I mean, I have, first of all, yes, because you've been trying to make that point for 3 minutes, and I have to acknowledge it. And there is going to be physical defense built from the Oni Warriors. But Sot taking up that tower, that was a bro move, right?
That was a bro move.
That was, he could very easily have dropped that, let Panatom die, and he would have got out scot-free. But it looks like PBM wants a stun on a
Пегана, скорее всего, вдвоем сейчас забьют, но нет. Панитом прилетел на помощь. Ласбора пришел, 3 в 2 теперь. Но они спокойно воюют просто потому, что не боятся особо физурона, потому что уже все вкачали, что нужно.
And not had to worry too much about it. Did have to use a decent bit to disengage there.
Ну и как, что переключили-то?
Instead is still applying pressure onto Dardez. Neutrality, neutral objectives, that's been the conversation in the past. We're getting within shooting range of the Stygian Beacon. We're also getting within spawn range of a Pyromancer.
Они теперь просто будут один в один перебивать абсолютно.
Pele, the potential that it has is just insane.
Absolutely love.
Сейчас, скорее всего, будет какой-нибудь ФГ на 15-16 минуте. И, соответственно, башня на... Ну, точнее, Титан на 20-й.
Dardez and Lasper ran. They were like, oh man, someone must be coming. It's not just Pagon here. Nope, it was literally just him. He feels that level of confidence. Finishes up the breastplate. You were talking about how much protections could be built and just double dip into that CDR. It's going to help out a ton as he goes into what I can assume is going to be the Transcendence, Heartseeker. So many different options from the Morningstar tree that are going to be benefiting your Pele dive. But the Oni Warriors are not ones to shy away from the scrapping, especially when they're ahead early. So I expect that Gold Fury to be looked at very soon, at the very least. And this goes in favor of the Jade Dragons. Netroid's on something like the Rama. It's different from the Iza. You're not just going to get infinite pressure. You can't just push Vote under tower consistently. And because of that, Vote should be able to step up closely to Gold Fury. He should know.
Они просто даже не пытаются как-то сильно напирать на них, и все равно все это заканчивается плохо. Нетроид просто расстреливает.
Maybe happily so for Dragons fans. This is the first time in a couple of games we panned over to the duo lane, and it hasn't been an immediate 2-level lead for Netroid. Much to what you were saying. A little more, not even balanced, just fit matchup for them. But the ult from Netroid, that can be a different conversation, especially as the game goes on. We have seen some really good snipes over the last few weeks. I guess extend that even further, not just Masters, but really.
Грубо говоря, 30 секунд осталось до маяка, но, видимо, они даже маяк сейчас не будут забирать. Просто потому что это не особо критично в данном сетапе.
And more importantly, now that he's level 13, beads online for Pagon to stifle that exact kind of trade.
And you're going to take that trade because, number one, think about all the cooldown that Pagon's building.
Yep.
Your ultimate's going to be up way before Lazarus does. So just saying, hey, I don't have beads, I'm going to have to time this perfectly, ends up doing so. Once that ult comes back up, probably pressure towards the left side of the map. Saw it.
Ласброс
Is
забирает
going to be rotating out
стигийский
here,
маяк.
followed by Nika. So the solo laner's heading towards this beacon, but already
Пока что
Jay
Пенни
Dragons have
Том.
gotten up pretty close to cap, but they have to retreat once they hear the
Так,
Yorm's
все
coming.
отошли, потому что
Yardes gets knocked
соло
out. This is
прилетел
definitely
просто
pressure
под
towards
башню.
the Oni Warriors towards this beacon.
Просто стоит под башней и
Turns
все.
up the fight side,
Ласбро
takes the
убил
tower
соло
for too
все-таки.
long, takes too much damage and is gone. Pagon maybe following in his footsteps.
Чисто
A lot
башня
of
убила.
damage thrown his way, has to fall back.
Ну, забрали.
Pagon swaying in favor of the Dragons, back in favor of the
Драгонс
Warriors,
забирает
back
стигийский маяк,
in
потому что
favor
тут
of
уже
the
2 в
Dragons.
5.
Android getting pushed out. Panatom can't do much
3 в
about it.
5. Уже
Should be a beacon
вряд ли.
confirmation here for the Dragons. Pagon has to be careful not to get caught out. Rest of the Warriors scattered to the wind. Sot still not even respawned. It could be, should be, and will be a pull onto the Fury from the Dragons for
Пока
already
что
over here.
не в полном составе
It's
были,
4v
они
Pagon.
собираются
Also Pele
забирать
for the Pele. What do you
Фурию,
commit for it?
но
Blink is there,
ульта
throws out an ability,
нет,
not
не
enough
успевает ультой Пеган забрать
for the
Фурию.
steal. But admirable try in the face of adversity from the Warriors. It's 3-3 for the kills. We're back at a tie game.
Sick play, though. Ends up blinking the 9 turns blessing just to go in for the steal, but the Jade Dragons, and again, a rare misplay from Sot. Just dove way too long, had the World Serpent, was not able to get into the ultimate. He was just, maybe he was just a little bit surprised at how much damage he did to Dardes and was like, I have to go in for this kill. But just did not have the tank stats to try and do it. So the Jade Dragons show, if you step up a little bit too far, we can definitely kill you, even if you have decent tank stats built already. So Sot falls down, the beacon goes the way of the Jade Dragons, the Fury goes the way of the Jade Dragons. Now, SOT sitting around the Pyromancer. No ADC in sight, Netroid's still over by left, but Pagon could do some decent DPS towards this objective if it decides to get pulled. Does not seem to be the call. We've been talking about a lot of sustain, right? They've got the Soul Eater, they've got the Aphrodite. So far, anti-heal has not been something the Jade Dragons are prioritizing. I mean, maybe a Cursed Onk here from Mike at level 12, but so far, no anti-heal purchase just yet. Of course, you get some value there from Kakolin, but besides that, it's not going to be enough to deal with the Aphrodite that we've seen so far, the Soul Eater, the lifesteal that Netroid's going to be putting into as well. You're going to need a little bit more if you're going to try and deal with all this sustain.
Heavier investment. I guess we'll see what happens in about one level there for Mike. Where his adjustment's going to be. I also feel like, you know, 2-0-1, this feels wild to be saying, but we haven't seen as much from Panatom the last couple of fights as we did early in the game.
Yep.
And so maybe that small opening, same thing, I think Pagon is surviving, but thriving is what I think they want for the Warriors right now. And if I remember correctly, the 70-30 split in favor of the Warriors. The chat also wants him to be thriving. And you know, you had mentioned it. I like bringing back this conversation because I feel like it works so best with the Warriors. Although for now, I'll put it on pause. As the Pyromancer started up by the Dragons, going to be
Драгонс забирает пироманта.
from the Warriors, but attempted.
Попытка была состилить, но неудачно.
And you had mentioned that the Aphrodite, and this was like week 2, maybe even earlier, of phase 1, was really good when you had carries you could rely on, and a hyper carry to connect to, someone to determine the fight that is going to be the one that needs to survive. And I feel like with the Warriors, and we've had this conversation I think in the past as well, you've kind of got 4 people that you could just choose. Sot might be a little lower on the list some games, but Pagon, Panatom, Netroid, it feels like Jake just has a plethora of people to choose from and to find success for himself as an Aphrodite.
Снова какие-то вялые попытки к
composition like this as well. You can easily be attached to Panatom, Susano, Pagon on the Pele, or even Netroid on the Rama. Yorm, not the best option if you really want to try and use that Undying Love right before he gets into World Serpent just to guarantee that he doesn't die. You could, but I think there's plenty of hard carries that you want to look for that ultimate elsewhere in a comp like this. So, you know, the Afro is going to get some immense value as this game continues. But still, it's been a lot of, you know, this duo lane where Netroid's been pulling ahead. 2-level lead. I mean, 1.5 call it there for votes. 16. Netroid just ticks over to 14. This Manticore, Marty, has not been getting involved in the fights just yet, but when he does, expect him to be swinging. Hasn't went into any Brawler's beat stick just yet, probably needing that extra penetration because his whole team is physical, and he recognizes, hey, everyone is building into a breastplate of valor. Like, I'm going to need a little bit extra pen here, so Titan's Bane picked up, but
Соло
either way,
опять перепрыгнул
seems
на
like
мид
Vote is gonna be able
и
to swing once he rotates into these
они
fights. He's been
пытаются
spending a
что-то
ton of
сделать,
time over in
какой-то...
Nuevo. This is the first time this set that I've seen him have a
Все-таки
lead
сделать
over
какой-то
Metro.
файт на миду в свою пользу.
And you know what? That's an opening for the Dragons to maybe lean on. But they haven't, and that's the thing that's been interesting, right? We saw a lot of pressure, specifically for Netroid on the Iza, that just opened things up. You said it, Vote. When he rotates, it's going to be a big deal.
Джейк
That's
просто
when he
под
rotates.
башней
Maybe it'll work out in
прессует
instances like this.
игрока Джей Дрэгонс.
Neighborhood. So for the 2v2, they're there, but Panatom
Все
plus
переходят
everybody
на
is on the
левую
Warriors. Starting to rotate
линию.
over towards left.
Все пытаются что-то найти, какой-то
Could be an option.
резкий
Either
мув,
of these
который
squads.
выведет из равновесия другую
But you need
команду.
to pick to get that thing to kick off. Nika hanging out over
3 в
here.
2.
Maybe
3 в
playing
2.
too aggressive, but has his team
3 в
around him.
3.
Mike seems to be the
Файт.
target for
Пол
right now, burning
PBM
down to half health.
уходит
He
на
gets out of
ульте.
there, right around Sot, who's been zoning
Соло
out. Vote. Now
пытается...
the World Serpent. Do they get aggressive and continue their chase, or
Он
they get the ball
делает
back with the
пространство
damage on the
для
Mike, some
своих
knockback displacement from Sot.
бэклайнеров, то есть для АДК,
So
для
not taking
мидера.
damage out there, Charlie, but they just aren't finding any kills.
Но
The
ничем не
Feels
заканчивается,
low
как
back for the
обычно.
Dragons.
Уже
Maybe
который
sitting
файт,
and
который
waiting in their
ничем не
lap. Sot
заканчивается.
was easy to burn down earlier. Takes a
4
good
в
chunk of
4
poke
тут
on his
идет
retreat, walks on out of there.
файт на
Massive
миду
rotation from both
Пелея
teams.
против
Beacon's about to spawn in.
Пачимана
Seems like another fight on the
отдельно
horizon.
от
I
всей
love the
другой
fact that
команды.
Dardes and Pagonis didn't rotate out of lane. Now the Primal Fury started up, but the Jade Dragons are here. This is a 50-50 at best. And the Oni Warriors
Пытается забирать у него Warriors
50-50. Also focusing on the
Фурию,
Beacon,
но
which Dardes has been sitting on. It's halfway charged.
Соло там очень
Gonna
сильно
get dropped.
быкует.
Warriors step forward. Panatom looks for the kill. At least a little bit of damage. Not able to find either. Just goes for small
Переключились с
strength. Still
Фурии
5
на
on 5.
стигийский
Groovy, you
маяк.
had mentioned it. Primal picked up, then dropped. And it feels like the Stygian Beacon
И
picked up,
опять
then
какие-то
dropped.
такие
So far by
вялые
both teams.
попытки файта.
Balancing point right around the wall, waiting
Соло
for the
уже
opportunity for the
в этот раз не
initiation. Just
прыгает
off
под
the
башню
mark
просто,
from Mike.
чтобы умереть.
Meanwhile, Jake's able to hit the kiss. Knockup's going to be good from Sot. But Trelly, it's a lot of staring each other down, waiting for the moment that hell breaks loose. Panatom's not even in the fight. It's a 5v4 till he comes back from base. Pagon has to be careful. Same.
Пенни
for
Том
Netroid.
ушел на базу, вернулся практически.
Afro does a lot of healing.
Второй маяк пытается забирать Джей Дрэгонс, но сейчас
Just waiting for that
Соло
moment where something goes
мешает
wrong.
им.
Slowly, the Dragons are accruing exactly what they need. The beacon, 3/4 full for them. Now Pagon's going to get involved, goes in. Good
PBM
knockups, and some slightly good damage. Great
2/3
knockups coming down
хп
from
потерял
Panatom.
уже
They don't have the
практически.
follow-through, and they haven't gotten any kills just yet. They're separating the space around the beacon. Netroid taking a lot of poke from Vote. Vote has to
Соло
fall
уже
back.
сильно
Pagon goes in for
просаженный.
the ultimate, has some good damage. But Charlie, they still haven't managed to find any kills. They're pushing them back. They're all low health bars. The Dragons walking away. Might have to give
Все
up the
просажены,
beacon.
все уже
Finally, the healing
Wow.
боятся.
paying off. No deaths, no kills, but a lot of pressure from the Warriors over long extended engagement.
Definitely one of the longer fights we've seen.
Все-таки
over
у
one
него
of these
Warriors их
beacons.
выжили
Finally
с,
goes the way of
с
the Oni
этого,
Warriors.
со стигийского
Might have been a
маяка.
4-minute beacon fight.
Yeah,
You
I
could
mean,
tell me and I'd believe you.
It started off so long ago. Sot was able to teleport back in. Nika transformed twice. I'm pretty sure like he really did transform twice. All because of just how much pressure and also how much disdain is on the side of the Oni Warriors. Jade Dragons are going to go for the pull onto the Pyro, though. It's really only Pagon once again to go for the steal. Does not have the damage and doesn't even want to step forward. Has to back up. So a double rune
Джей Дрэгон
bomb
забирает
in
пироманта.
pocket for Polar Bear Mike.
Пытается
And you're right, Fire Giant
начать
fired up.
какой-то
You got
файт
double
за
runic
ФГ.
bomb. Someone has to step up here. The Oni Warriors, they don't want to
Соло
go for a steal.
заходит,
They want to go for a
пытается
fight.
мешать.
Might have to find a very appropriate kill onto Mike as the target Pagon.
Слишком рано для того, чтобы стилить. Джей Дрэгон забирает ФГ. PBM закончился. Нет, Пеган закончился.
Only able to get out of here might turn things around. Nika Moving forward, has the transformation.
Теперь 5-4 Джей Дрэгонс пушит.
Trying to find the right path to cut him off, and Jake is
Джейк
gonna be the one who
очень мало
sacrifices,
хп.
no, walks away, and they turn their eyes towards
Тоже.
Metroid, turn their eyes
Вот, убивает соло тролль.
go off.
Минус башня Джей
Solo
Дрэгонс
laner
по
for the
мидлейну.
Warriors, 2 gone on the order side, and now the siege begins in true for the Dragons. Tier 1 in mid, out of there. Tier 2 gonna follow shortly thereafter.
Минус
They have
вторая
their eyes set on
башня.
the Phoenix.
Yep,
И,
no
скорее всего,
ultimate
минус
fail for the
Феникс.
Warriors. They just have to sit here and watch and hope
Еще
their sustain is
25
enough.
секунд не
Will
будет
copy
соло
this
тролля, и
Phoenix.
5 секунд не будет
Certainly
Феникс.
drops down. Panatom
Пегана.
lured in, but he's gonna have to watch as the Jade Dragons full-on retreat off of an aggressive Pyromancer call turned into Fire Giant burn. And it goes their way.
Под
handily.
ФГ.
I mean, that
Всё
came
это
out
было
of
под
nowhere. We
ФГ.
see a 4-minute beacon fight into a Fire Giant pull from the Jade Dragons off of some confidence, and again, great damage coming from Vote. Not only has Lasbra been an integral part in setting up for this team fight, Nika's been diving the backline pretty consistently, but this Marty has been doing a lot of burst damage, has been farming up slowly over in duo, all for this moment, right? Being able to rotate in. Big deal. So far it's been
Ощущение, что
working out.
соло
Both these ADCs,
пытается
I should
просто
say, 'cause Dardas has also been on point.
вытянуть на еще одну
Jade
катку
Dragons in their
хорошую.
entirety. They grab the Primal Fury, they got one bird down.
Джей Драгонс забирает Фури.
Play this one as slow as they like.
Они пошли забирать все абсолютно объекты,
Yeah, once
которые
you get
могут
one
забрать.
Phoenix. Yeah, I mean, you still have 4 towers to knock through. I'll go ahead and make it 3. The minions decide to play, I guess, a little bit of a spoiler there. Knock one down for themselves. Gold in favor of the Dragons by quite a bit, almost 6,000. Depending on how the rest of this 2 minutes goes, it's going to be well
Минус
over
башня на
6,000
соло-линии у
by the
Джей
time the Dragons are
Драгонс.
done. The 4 towers quickly become 2, and they are grouped up mostly on left. The Lasbra far off in the jungle on right, looking to potentially isolate and harass Solo or Troll. Nika pressure in mid, making sure Fire Minions still get some work done. The rest of the Dragons topple a tier 2 and left, and then Trelly back to spend some well-earned gold.
У него
Does that,
осталась
there's
одна
no more
башня только на
Phoenix needs to be
соло-линии.
looked at. They've got a minute 30 left on the buff, so
И 2
right side tier 2,
Феникса.
and then
Yeah, that's such a
probably
long time to work with.
yeah, and then probably head on back to base unless they're really feeling confident to step forward. It's just you know, the conversation was 5 Fizz draft, right? 5 physical characters on the side of the Jade Dragons. Everyone on the Warriors, barring Netroid, has built in some form of physical defense, whether it be the 3 breastplates I see from Jake, Pagon, and Panatom, or of course, you know, the plenty of defense that Sot and Awesome Jake are going to be building towards. But it hasn't been able to stop the Dragons. I mean, once that shred comes through from Marty, once everyone gets Executioner down, that sort of thing, the tanks start to be a lot less tanky, and it's actually the Oni Warriors getting aggressive here?
And they're gonna chase
Так,
down at least
Пеган
Lasbra
пытается
right
забрать
now. It is
Ласбру.
good, but Sot wants a little more
Все на
knockouts.
Ласбру
You would call it the main
накинулись,
form of
кроме
CC
одного
here for the Warriors, and
игрока.
enough to get that
Зато там
kill. Panatom's
сейчас
incredibly low, but Panatom has a
они
chance to peel
убирают
off, and
второго
that's gonna be a
Феникса, и
second
скорее
one picked
всего...
up easily for the Warriors. They lose the right side Phoenix in the
Нет,
process,
они
though
просто
Trelly a lot
сбили
to
Феникса, и
sacrifice
все, и
for just a
возвращается на
couple
базу.
kills, but what can they do on the map? What kind of pressure can they get? It's a tier 2 at least.
Повторяют шаг
5v3.
от Джей Дрэгонс,
Do you want them to go for a
забирают
I
две
don't know if
башни.
they're gonna go for it. Looks like they feel confident.
Будут
Sot
ли они на
has the
Феникса
ultimate, he's
идти
gonna step forward. It looks like
4
the
в 3
Phoenix is the
сейчас?
call, and they're just sieging
Сейчас
forward.
Пенитом
They're
еще
gonna
вернется,
look
будет
for
5
some
в 3.
damage. They're looking for
IBM,
Mike
скорее
Pagon
всего,
taking
минус.
a little more damage than
Нет.
maybe he would like. Netroid,
Потеряли
as well as
двоих.
Sot taking too much. The Phoenix stands, and so do the 3 surviving members of the
Играли 3 в
Dragons.
2 и потеряли,
Thwart
соответственно.
that attempt.
Точнее, играли в 4
Really, that gives us
в 3 и
soft
двоих
reset, maybe
потеряли.
the hard reset for some of these teams. Fire minions in mid being dealt with.
Реально они
Minions on
рассчитывают
right.
на
They
следующую
start
еще
pouring
катку.
down. Dragons respawning now. Fire Giant back in about a minute. Just enough breathing room for the Warriors to get their 2 side laners back onto the board. Try to figure out how they want to crack the eggshell that will be the Fire Giant fight.
Jade Dragons are stepping forward. They grab another Pyromancer. Remember, that was the go button last time. 2 Runic Bombs in pocket for Mike. Easy confirmation. Let's go for fire. This time around, you have
Еще один
2
пиромант
Phoenixes down, at
на
least for a little bit longer. That mid-bird
стороне
should be
Джей
spawning in here
Дрэгонс.
shortly for the Oni Warriors. But still, the confirmation in favor of the Dragons, and they still have to deal, the Oni Warriors that is, with the the right side minions. Those fire waves are going to be pouring forward. The Oni Warriors showed, I mean, that fight seemed like Sot was a bit out of
Теперь
position. They stepped forward.
будет
They
борьба
recognized,
за
hey, there's 2
ФГ.
over on right. They're grabbing bird. We can fight this. And they end up winning that fight. It was what they tried to do after the fight. That was a bit of an issue. They step into the Phoenix, and Dardes and Vote just do too much damage. These ADCs were able to stall
Тем
out.
временем Соло забирает
Now
последний
SOT
маяк.
is trying to solo cap
Никто ему не мешает.
Beacon.
Нет, Ника будет
Nika and
мешать.
Lazar are not going to let that one slide.
И Ласбра,
Fire
Ника,
Giant's
все
gonna go untouched for
перекидываются
the time
сюда.
being.
I think for the Warriors, knowledge, you need to be present for the Fire Giant because otherwise it just goes the way of the Dragons. Whereas the Dragons, they aren't too worried about the Warriors stepping up to the FG right now. It is all about the fight, but originally all about the beacon. And it only had 2 lanes to choose from. Which one has the most structures? And that would be left as of right now. So that's where the Titans will clash inevitably. Meanwhile, all eyes are on
По левой
Ryan.
линии
Fire
пойдет
Giant,
Титан.
Shelly, you have to assume started up soon. A little over 2 minutes before it becomes enhanced. There's a good chance that we're waiting until then as well.
Yep, could be the call. The Jade Dragons are the ones trying to set up an ambush, and it's only Awesome Jake on ward coverage so far. All the while, Lasbra is pushing up mid lane by himself, so could have a decent wraparound attempt if he goes unnoticed into the red buff. The Titans are going to run down left, as you said. They'll eventually equal out, but finally, Fire Giant started up, so not enhanced. And the Jade Dragons are going to get it down low. When Warriors see trouble, Lasbra's already in the back line.
Nika trying to do
Соло там
whatever
пытается
he can.
воевать
Burn those
с
seeds
Ласбра.
to be onto Vote.
Нетройд
Snipes
убивает
are
вот.
good from Netroid, and he finds exactly what
Минус
his
1,
team
5-4.
needs. A little bit of zone
Теперь
coming
они
from
все
Side. The World Serpent gets him the disengage
ушли.
as well. You had mentioned it, Lasbra deep
ФГ.
over on left. He's gonna have to make a call here. Does he go back
Тем
to the
временем
fight,
по левому,
especially now that the Warriors
по дуо-лейну
will be the
идут
ones
2
setting up the
Титана.
FG?
Кто-то
The
будет
answer to
что
that
с этим
seems to be
делать?
yes. Netroid
Нет,
goes
они
to
больше
yes,
выбирают
forces the objective.
убить
Lasbra
ФГ
gonna be walking around
в
back.
этот же
Pagon
момент.
spots him out. Pagon goes in
И
for the fight.
чтобы
Pagon might not be wanting this
было
one,
больше
though. A lot
дамага.
of good coming
Пеган
from
очень
Lasbra,
проигрывает
and that's the
Ласбра.
ult away from the mid laner for the Warriors. Fire Giant
У него
goes
забирает
towards
ФГ.
the order team, but now can
Тем
they
временем
survive the
Титаны
onslaught of the Dragons?
бьются
Yes,
на
not
левом
only survive, but
фланге.
then
Пенни там
thrive.
убивает,
Kills
Нетройд
galore
убивает.
as they pour into the laps of the Warriors.
Пеган
All
убивает
five
всех.
dead. It's a
Минус 5.
deicide,
Скорее
and the
всего, это
Warriors
конец.
running straight down mid, but the
But they
Titans,
can't.
they can't end right
They
now.
gotta
They
get the
have
Titan.
to go fight.
SOT just put his hands in his head. He knows he's got to go deal with the Titan first. Someone's going to go kill it all the while. Trying to go up for the mid Phoenix. Not going to be easy. Remember, Vote died from the snipes. He had to use
Не
Aegis, but he
успеет.
still had death from above.
Слишком долго они перекидывались на Титана, чтобы что-то делать. Единственное, что пока еще 10 секунд осталось до того, чтобы еще хоть кто-то был на... Вот, убивает Пегана просто потому, что Феникс.
Kill off and negate one. Fire Giant buff does exactly what he needs. He had the ult, he had the beats. And Trelly Vote lives to see another day. It's a tier 2 and retreat for the Warriors.
Yeah, didn't love that call. I mean, you're split up. It's a 2v1, but with Death from Above available, it's such a stall tool. There's no one traditionally tanky that's going to be able to hold on to that Phoenix aggro. And because of that,
Все новая механика. Если бы Титана не было, они бы впятером побежали бы на мид на Феникса, срубили бы Феникса в секунду и срубили бы Титана, ну, за 20 секунд, допустим. А так, пришлось Титана сейвить, потому что он бы, явно он бы с этими не сильно заморочился бы с мобами. Ника получает урон, но они все отходят по 3 урона получили. Джей Дрэгонс бегут Фурию хотя бы забрать, потому что все остальные значимые объекты уже забраны. Просто Титан, который засейвил игру для Джей Дрэгонс. Ну, Джей Дрэгон забирает
Even teleports in,
Фурию.
Mike around, has Jake and the rest of the Warriors. They might be looking for a fight.
They might be. Remember, the right side minions are pushing forward. If the Jade Dragons retreat, that should be it. And the Oni Warriors do not seem to have a care in the world. Finally, end up going back to base. Only a minute and 20 seconds left on this Fire Giant push. So retreating is the smart call. Deal with those right side waves. Maybe group up for a Pyromancer so you've got some decent steal attempt on the FG. because it's been a lot of the Jade Dragon stepping forward, relying on those runic bombs, being able to find easy confirmation towards the objectives. But Panatom has the Typhoon now, which is a pretty decent attempt to try and contest with what that runic bomb wants to do. And the right side wave is right next to Fire Giant, so it's not the biggest deal. I'm trying to go in for the confirmation here. The Oni Warriors are able to equalize a bit of what the Jade Dragons are able to do. They win that fight handedly, are not able to get as much as they would have liked. We saw them pop off in the booth. They definitely thought the game was over there, and they realized the Titans were gone. Because of that, they're going to have aggressive positioning towards the Fire Giant at the very least. Lasbra tried to loop around. He was trying to get to the back line, but the Warriors aren't going to let that one slide. Now Panatom is sitting in mid lane, just making sure he's got tabs on this Erlong Shen.
Пироманта забирает
Goes down, so
Oni
now
Warriors.
that runic bomb situation is finally equalized. And look at the tanks just sieging forward. Once again, they just want fight score. The Oni Warriors, if they didn't have to go for the Fire Giant, they wouldn't.
Соло уже явно говорит, ребята, давайте заканчивать. Но он, правда, играет хуже всех в данный момент. 1-5 у него. Он просто умер везде, где только мог умереть.
I'm sure, however, when you start to lean back, you maybe talk to Coach Oxy, all of a sudden it's a lot more stressful, right? Having to watch these guys play. They're all mechanically gifted. And I think we've seen that plenty of times throughout all of this. The biggest standing point right now has to be sought, right? 1-5-7. It's the worst slash line in the game as of right now, but definitely for the team.
Последняя башня осталась у Jade Dragons, но, скорее всего, они не будут ее снимать, потому что нет особого толка. Опять будет сейчас битва за ФГ. У них есть одна бомба, и у тех есть одна бомба.
It feels like he is a linchpin, though, for the success of the Warriors. No doubt. He doesn't have beads. You can tell Lasper wanted to blink in there and find a taunt, but if SOT just uses the ultimate to try to immune it and then is able to dive, it can be a bit annoying. You just have to watch out, because he hasn't built too tanky, right? He still does have plenty of defense items, but he's got a lot of damage done as well. And in the face of Dardez and Vote, could get shredded through very easily. Finally, the fire waves are dealt with, but look at this once again, the Warriors. They siege forward, not as if they're going for a pull or a bait in. It's because they want to scrap. Even if it's in the enemy jungle, they will step forward. They want blood.
We know they have an advantage. I thought for sure we were about to see Panatom lead the way, lead the charge. Maybe find a massive knockup, massive kills against the Dragons. Titans in the room now. They get another deicide. It's just done. The same can be said the other way around. Dragons.
Соло дефает ФГ.
Enhanced Fire Giant on the board, Shelly. For the Dragons, though, in their red buff. Matched by 5 of the Warriors.
Соло начал замес. Ника на пол хп. Вот. Ультит, но практически ни в кого не попадает. Панитом ультой его сбривает легко. Опять -1 у Jade Dragons, но Warriors ничего не могут сделать с этим. Вроде как файт выиграли. Решает перегруппироваться на ФГ. Явно не пойдут Jade Dragons. Я понял. Jade Dragons пытается забрать Фурию, но скорее всего сейчас они прилетят.
Lost his ult, he lost both relics. Of course, Death from Above will be back up when he spawns in, but you've lost both of your survivability tools if you're the Marty. It's not going to be easy to try and stand at the forefront of this fight. You're probably sitting pretty far back if you're Vote without either relics. Because look at the dive. I mean, it's going to be
Всем плевать на последнюю башню на соло линии.
The Warriors looking for set number 15 in their streak.
Ника пытается делать что-то 1 в 3, но все это заканчивается для него не очень хорошо. Почти все хпшки он теряет. Минус Ласбра. Минус Феникс на миду.
Enhanced Fire Giant putting a little bit of effort in for the Warriors right now. And that healing, Shelly, it always comes back to it. One off the board, traded out
Сот
for one
просто
more back on here.
бэкается на
The defense on the
базу.
left side Phoenix is going to be standing for
Теперь
the Dragons.
4 в 4 здесь.
SOT teleporter back in, no wards
Да,
immediately, so had to
он
go
быстро
towards the
на
mid, but still,
блюстоуне перепрыгивает
all the while Pagon is trying to find a wraparound.
на ближайший вард к Фениксам. Минус второй Феникс.
Have to try and keep their base alive if they want their hopes to go to the Masters Finals, not to die here.
4 в 4, еще полминуты.
Pressure on 'em. It seems like that
Точнее,
pressure
5 в
might
4.
be self-imposed, at least for a moment. The Warriors let off a little
Теперь
bit on
наконец-то
base.
все вспоминают о том, что еще одна целая башня на правой линии, то есть на соло.
Trelly,
Башни уже нет.
the base, the last
И
Phoenix.
все спокойно
9
заходят
seconds
на
before Lazarus is back,
последнего
giving the
Феникса.
opportunity to crack open this shell. 2.5 minutes on the enhanced fire giant. They're going to pick up.
Еще 2 секунды,
all
5 в
three
4.
birds.
Все 3 Феникса мертвы.
But they know better than to try and dive into the Titan room, dive into the full force of the Dragons. So with now 5,000 gold in their favor, 12 to 8, and 38 minutes in, the Warriors back away with 3 lanes of fire minions and a massive advantage.
The Jade Dragons are stepping forward. It doesn't look like they're
Соло
just
просто
retreating.
пытается
Lazarus
что-то
might walk
сделать.
into an ambush here. Doesn't end up doing so. Either way, the Jade Dragons were stepping forward, right? They wanted to try
Пеган
and take
один
a fight.
забирает
This is the same
пироманта.
situation as last game. They had to try and take a fight, not in their Titan room. Their Titan is full HP, so it wouldn't be easy to try and just go for the all-in.
Фурию тоже забирает Вони Warriors.
I'm trying to look at their win condition here. A nice blink in from Lasbra has usually been the engage, but last time that happened, he ended up just getting shredded. Vote and Dardes couldn't really close that gap and try and follow up. These ADCs, they've got good range, but anytime they're in auto attack,
Все объекты
Panatom and Pagon are there, and that's a bit of a
подстригли
problem. So they have
Вони
to stay as far
Warriors.
back as possible, and because of that, the Blink 9 turns blessings, the Blink knockups from Nika, those sort of CC plays are not the easiest to try and follow up on, even with the amount of range that Martikaros or a ranged auto attack from Dardes can provide. 3 birds down, all waves pushing forward. The Oni Warriors have just a bit more time on this fire.
Jade Dragons просто ждут.
Panatom popped a
Ждут,
3K
когда
bomb.
кто-нибудь один
So has a lot of damage,
попытается
and it's
что-то
looking to use
кого-то
it
убить.
alongside Pagon.
Лазбро
Lasbra
попытался
caught out, needs a
напасть на
little more.
Пегана, но
Pagon
его
is able to
завалили.
find it.
Сразу же
Knockup
быстро.
gonna be good, but
Ника
Panatom
убивает
loses
Пенни
his life in
Тома.
the process. Dardes getting chased
Дардес
down.
уйдет.
Makes it back
Дардес
without the
уходит
snipes.
на...
Not on the mark, and now Pagon's
Еще и убивает
on the
Пегана.
Dragons, making a defense that they needed here to
Все,
keep
Сот
their
пошел
Titan
ультить.
alive
Но
and push the
это чисто
Warriors back.
для
Now
того,
the
чтобы
enhanced
дать своим
fire minions
отойти
walking in lane
на
with
регрупп.
the 3 left. They just don't have the damage, Trelly. Dragons. They might not find any advance. They are going to
Джейк и
find
Детроид
Max teleports in.
просто ждут.
Looking for a little
Соло
more.
уже сбегал на баску, вернулся обратно
Gonna do
через
too much, a
вард.
3v4. You only have 1 carry to work with. I like the call. Fall back. Maybe need to do it a little sooner, but they're going to be safe.
Пока что все эти размены только на руку Jade Dragons.
But not put themselves at risk too heavily.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors really had to commit there to try and get that kill on Lasbra. In doing so, unfortunately, Netroid off the mark with those snipes, and Dardes was able to make it back to base. If Dardes dies, maybe you go in for the full commit to the Titan. But doesn't end up happening, and of course, the Oni Warriors are a man down. They have to retreat. And like I said before, that Fire Giant buff was not long for this world. So another retreat call, as these Phoenixes will be coming up here shortly. If the Jade Dragons are able to stall out this enhanced Fire Giant pull, they could be looking at full Phoenixes up. And all just depends on when the Oni Warriors are able to group
Все
up for
уже
another attempt at the
группа
enhanced Fire
апнулись.
Giant. One more wave of Fire Minions at least over on left. So now the Oni Warriors can play it a little bit slower, wait till
Теперь
someone
Они
goes over
Warriors
to clear that
должны,
last wave, or
наверное,
if they
снова
don't, Bird goes
убрать
down.
ФГ
I know the Oni Warriors, like I do. I
и
don't think they're going to play this one slow. I think they want to step forward. They will gladly take the fight
пытаться
of the
снова
Jade Dragons, give
Фениксов
it to 'em.
сбить, которые
Look at
снова
this positioning.
появились.
They're all sieging forward.
They're stepping forward. Enhanced Fire Giant.
Получится ли у них вообще ФГ сейчас забрать, потому что Jade Dragons как-то более оптимистично настроены на этот файт. Ника снова прыгает, начинает файт, но у него очень мало хп сразу остается. Пеган уходит от Лазбра. Лазбра его все-таки забирает. Нетроид не успел его защитить в ульте. Опять -1. Просто файт и -1. Уже на 50 секунд. -1 будет.
Yep, and because of that, the Jade Dragons did exactly what they wanted. They stalled out the enhanced fire giant. They have the one-man advantage, and Lazarus was able to clear over on the left side of the map. Only
Двое забирают ФГ, двое пытаются кого-то убить. Пенитом ультой убивает.
Both relics.
Теперь поровну. Но Пеган еще 30 секунд, а этому 60. Ника снова прыгает в толпу, пытается начать какую-то заварушку. Соло против троих воюет. Детройт убивает Нику. Лазбра пытается убить Пенитома, но ему помогает Соло. И, скорее всего, Лазбра сейчас закончится, да. Теперь уже перевес на Oni Warriors стороне. ПГ так и не срубили, кстати. Я, по идее, в этой ситуации первое, что они должны были бы делать. PBM, скорее всего, закончится сейчас. Да, Соло убивает PBM, и Дардес только остался. И, скорее всего, это все должно быть для Oni Warriors. Вот, возвращается, но тут уже все.
And the win streak continues. The Warriors take this set and go to finals.
I mean, it wasn't clean. Towards the end there, I saw a lot of misplays, a lot of oversteps from the Oni Warriors, but at the very least,
Паш, он прям как ты. Пяточку затащил, хлебнул энергетос.
Completely deleting vote off the face of the map with both relics up. That was nuts, number one. Number two, is able to juke out Lasbra just long enough for the cavalry to arrive, for Yorm to land. SOT says, don't worry, man, I got you. And once that kill doesn't come through, once the Susano does not fall, all of the wind in the Jade Dragon sail just falls through. Dardes and PBM were not able to stand up to 4 members of the Warriors.
Yeah, a lot of reaching out, poking for their opportunity from the Dragons. And unfortunately, every single time, it's just a little too shy. Even the moments, I mean, look, that defense, it went way better than I think they could have expected. Where they're able to wipe the Warriors. It keeps them alive. They
да все, Кучерява пошел закинуться.
It feels like the tide is shifting, but like you said, all the wind just ceases in the blink of an eye there. The Warriors still undefeated and still moving forward. We'll see them tomorrow in the finals. For now, you've seen enough of us. Kick it over to the desk to break this one down.
That's right, the Oni Warriors keep up their undefeated streak, 15-0 now in their sets from the inception of this team.
And yeah, just see how they wanted to play. I think they were looking for pressure, but when I feel like when a team tries to play pressure against us, we're just gonna like come on top on that. So.
Well, hey,
Он говорит, короче, первую катку мы решили просто сделать эксперимент и все. Ну, типа, и не получилось, конечно.
Every single neutral objective. Things go really well in game 2. They go really well in game 3. Then game 4 comes around. It's a lot shakier, a lot more back and forth. By the end, you guys have some advantages going your way, but still some moments that feel like it's slipping through your fingers. What do you do when you're in a 45-minute game? You know things are like on the line for you, potentially having to go to another. How did the team like grip up and seal the deal?
Oh man, I can tell you it's exhausting. Like as a player playing a tournament, like something really important that you want to win right now, like going into a best of 5 against a good team like Dragons. Of course, it's like exhausting, but I feel like we do a pretty good job on like getting the emotions like together.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes you can like get so emotional in a team fight that everyone is shouting, and if everyone is shouting, comms become like kind of like bad, you know, and you cannot hear anything. So I feel like we try to adapt and we try to be as disciplined as we can, because I know some of my players like to do some weird stuff on the scrims. So I feel like yeah, we do a pretty good job. Everyone puts their part, everyone puts their effort. So I'm really.
Пытались играть очень дисциплинированно. Хоть некоторые пытались все испортить.
The important thing, the conversation that has been having. Not only have you guys had an undefeated season, but since formation, you have been lossless in a set as far as things go. So you're going into the finals tomorrow. What would it mean to you and maybe to the boys as well to win that set?
It will be fantastic, of course. Like when we made this team, like I tried to contact everyone because I wanted to make a team as well. And I saw Pani was a free agent as well, and I've played with Pani before, right? Yeah. So it started pretty good, and everyone had their doubts, of course, like as any other new team. But I don't know, for some reason I felt like I talked to my teammates, like everyone on a call before we doing the team, and I told them like, man, we're gonna win everything this year. Like trust me, we just need to be like disciplined. Okay, I want everyone to be disciplined, and I want everyone to put their hearts on like every game. And I feel like it's been working. Like I couldn't ask for more for like the teammates that I have right now, and I feel like they're insane, man.
I think everything you've asked for, you've gotten, right? Discipline, as well as playing their hearts out. Still one more set to go before you can maybe close out the entirety of the first half of the year, but an impressive streak and an impressive win here. Congratulations again on today. We'll see y'all tomorrow. But for now, we'll kick it back to the desk to break this out.